Good morning. Welcome in on a Friday to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
Hey, man.
What's going on, buddy?
Oh, living the dream. Another day, another dollar.
Nebraska was living the dream last night. At least
incredible.
In the second half. The first half, they were living the nightmare.
Hey, I don't know, man, because I was like, hey, keep running up the score, Wisconsin, so I can take this live money. I'm like, come on, keep it going.
It was an incredible effort from Nebraska last night. Obviously, we will cover that in depth. I have to say, I was kind of like tweeting through my thoughts, especially in the second half there, because in the first half, I don't want to just sit there and be like, oh, they're playing terrible. They missed a ton of shots. That doesn't require a ton of analysis. Obviously, Wisconsin came out super hot. They were playing really well, but there's not that many games that I watch, especially in basketball, because I watch so much basketball that I don't get utterly shocked very often, just stunned by how a game goes. And last night and it wasn't just that Nebraska came back, right? What it was the fact that Wisconsin punched them in the mouth early. Okay. They get out. It's like 42-23. So I think it's up to 19 at one point. And Nebraska just keeps trying to chip away. They get it down to 9. Chucky has a little spurt at the end of the half. It goes up to 16. Like every time Nebraska got it to a manageable number, and this happened, it felt like 3 or 4 times, Wisconsin would counterpunch. They'd hit back. They'd get back up to double digits. And it'd be like, I felt like one of those where it's like, man, they're not going to have enough to get over the hump. They're going to run out of gas because they dug too big of a hole too early, and they've been trying to come back this entire time. It just felt like they were going to run out of gas. And to their credit, this is the part that stunned me, is it wasn't the first, second, third, even fourth try. They finally got over the hump in overtime. I mean, they took brief leads.
Well, they took a lead at the end of the game.
Yeah, at the very end of the game.
End of regulation, I should say, when they got up 2.
Yeah, 67, 65, I think?
Maybe about 30 seconds were left.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, because I turned to I was at the game, and I turned to some buddies in the stands, and I said, this feels like Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nebraska found all the momentum, and then all of a sudden they forgot how to play basketball.
Yeah.
Because toward the end of the game, that's what it was. Nebraska tied the game at, we'll call it like 50, 52,
I think it was
52.
52,
right?
Yeah.
And
that was the first time they tied it.
And then Wisconsin would go down again and miss. Nebraska would go down, turnover. Okay. Wisconsin comes back, goes down and miss. Nebraska comes down, takes a bad shot. And it's like, wait a second, guys. What just happened? I know a timeout took place.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys just came out of that timeout. You have all of the energy, all of the momentum, and you can't buy a bucket. You can't find a way to get a good looking open shot.
Well, and that's the moment.
Reminded me of that moment at Rutgers when they just kind of puckered.
That's the moment where I thought they were gonna lose, was when it was 52-52, and then I believe it was Klismet for Wisconsin hit a couple threes in a row, and I think it went out to 58-52, and I was like, oh, man, that was probably it, because they did have the turnovers, and it wasn't the prettiest, it was kind of stuck at that 52-52 for a minute, as you said, some turnovers, some missed opportunities, and then it seemed like, okay, whoever breaks through this kind of stalemate at 52 first might, because we're talking like, 5 minutes left, 6 minutes left in the game at that point. And it was like
trading poor possessions, miss shots.
And again, Nebraska's expended so much energy just to get to that point. And then to have Wisconsin hit, I think Klismet hit 2 threes in a row to go 55-52 and then 58-52. And you just kind of sit there and you're like, oh, that might have been the opportunity. That might have been it. But to Nebraska's credit, even though they fell behind, and I believe it didn't get more than 6 at any point during that stretch, but I think it was still 65-59 with like 3.5 minutes left. And you're just kind of sitting there. It's like, I don't know if they've got enough to do it again. to their credit, they then hold Wisconsin at that 65 number until, like you said, about 30 seconds left in the game. And I was like, oh, man, once they got 67-65, that was the first time that I was like, oh, gosh, they might. And that was like late, obviously. That was the first time I thought, oh, man, they might actually do this. And then as soon as Wisconsin hit that bucket to send it to overtime, I was like, God, they're going to run out of gas. Because I don't know if you haven't played or coached or like been part of a team in these situations where you're trying to make a huge comeback. I don't care what sport it is, basketball, football, whatever, right? You expend so much energy to get to that point that a lot of like, it's so common to just not have enough to get over the finish line. And that's what it looked like for Nebraska. And the fact that they were able to do that multiple times where it looked like, God, there's no way they're going to have enough to get this thing done. And then they go and make it to overtime. So it's like, oh man, they got 5 more minutes. Like this really felt like you need this thing in regulation. And then Wisconsin sort of falls apart in overtime and Nebraska wins it pretty comfortably. Just a totally bizarre way for that game to play out.
Well, I'll tell you what, I actually think it's the other way around.
Okay.
I think Wisconsin ran out of gas, that felt fatigued and ran out of gas. I mean, it was hard to play in front of those fans.
Sure, yeah.
Very difficult.
That place was
and
crazy.
Nebraska was feeling the mojo of that fan base toward the end of that game, especially. Like Rink Mast was making threes late in that game.
Dude, the step back three, I was just,
oh my gosh, water splash or whatever you want to call it. Rink Mast buried that.
That was one of those that was an all-time. If you've ever been a part of a basketball team, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There is that no, yes. Like that was an ultimate. Like you're like, what are you like? Why is Rink Mast going Kobe on me here?
You almost would rather see CJ Wilcher just force a three.
100%, yeah, because he'd made a bunch of those, and I was like, listen, Rink Mast, we love you, thank you, but not really your shot. And then he just goes, oh, don't worry about me. I'm just going to Kobe this step back here and drain the three. That was an all-time no, yes!
And it worked out.
It did.
On TV, did it look like it did in person where the ball barely got over the front rim?
I don't know. I don't really remember watching the ball go through the hoop. I was watching Mast because I was like, what is he doing? And then I don't know. It felt like it was pretty high arcing, so I didn't really notice that part of it.
It just looked like it barely went through. But, beside the point, Rink Mast took 8 threes again in that game.
Yep.
He made 2 of them. And those 2 were huge.
That was one of them.
Down the stretch. Bryce Williams, too, stepped up in a huge way late in that game. And then, of course, we mentioned CJ Wilcher. But no, going back to the atmosphere, that's what kept Nebraska going.
Yes.
It was an emotional game. Early on in that game, some of the calls were kind of bizarre. There were points in time where, I saw Rink Mast jump straight up in the air, get called for a blocking foul. There was a time where Bryce Williams got a clean block from behind.
That one was rough.
Got called for a
foul.
On
TV, that was the worst one.
Yeah, well, and then there was a follow-up one, and I don't think it was Bryce. It may have been Jamarcus. It was either Jamarcus or CJ that came in from – no, it was Juwan Gary. Came in from behind for another block, which was a lot more contact than Bryce Williams, but they let it go.
Yeah.
And then you kind of saw, like, in the second half, Nebraska, you look up at the scoreboard and you're like, wait a second, how does Wisconsin have 7 fouls and we have 1?
Yep.
And then you could start to see some of those makeup calls taking place. I think it was Max Klesmit stepped through a double team and got called. That got called as a blocking foul.
On Mast, I think.
But Klesmit actually tripped over himself. Yep. And so there were times where the officials were trying to catch Wisconsin
basically
up.
Anytime and I tell people this all the time, except for apparently in the Purdue Northwestern game the night before, where the refs had no interest in making that even whatsoever. If there is a big disparity, and I noticed it a bunch with Creighton because Creighton doesn't foul that much. So every time there's a big disparity like that, I'm like, we're about to get 3 really ticky-tack calls here. And so anytime it even looked like a foul, you mentioned the one where Klismet tripped himself through the lane. There was one where I don't remember who it was for Wisconsin, but Nebraska had basically done their box outs, and the Wisconsin player comes flying in and tries to like jump over everybody's back, and they call a loose ball foul on Nebraska. It's like, nope, they didn't undercut him. He just tried to jump over him, and he didn't.
I saw that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was like, he didn't.
Oh man,
he didn't have.
There were a lot in that game that had me.
He was trying to like
in my head.
He was trying to like Blake Griffin the Kia there, and he got clipped on the way over. Like it didn't. He didn't quite.
He didn't have enough bounce.
I was like, nobody would have called a foul on the Kia in that situation.
Another point I'll bring up too, and Fred Hoiberg deserves a ton of credit.
Yeah.
When that game was 52-52,
mm-hmm.
and a timeout was called by Wisconsin, Hoiberg runs out Tominaga with that lineup, and then the ensuing 2 possessions for Wisconsin, they hit back-to-back threes.
Mm-hmm.
And those back-to-back threes were Tominaga's guy.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one, I don't want to put too much blame on Casey because he went down for a double team, kick out. I want to say it was Klesmit again. Hits the 3.
It was Klesmit, yeah.
The very next possession, Tominaga, I'm watching him like a hawk
mm-hmm.
because I knew that last one was his man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on his guy like glue. And then all of a sudden, once he like stepped to kind of take away the paint at one point to maybe force a double team, he completely lost his guy.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know where he went. Klesmit's out on the wing, wide open 3, buries it again. Guess who calls timeout? Fred Hoiberg. Hoiberg calls timeout. Casey finds the bench
to basically just pull Tominaga.
Pull him out of the game because he saw what just happened. And we know Tominaga is not a great defender.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all know that. He's a great shooter. He's really a rhythm guy.
Yeah.
He needs to feel like he's got that spark in order to build off of it.
He needs a little help getting going.
And he was on the bench for a long period of time before that 52-52 break.
Mm-hmm.
But who was on the floor that was showing immense pressure, nonstop speed was Sam Hoiberg.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was all over the floor, defensively, offensively. Look, there was a point where I look down and I go, man, Nebraska is still missing that dude, right? That needs to make the bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get them over the hump. And I'm laughing internally because I'm like, man, it's got to be Sam at this point because he's the only one that looks comfortable with the rock.
Yeah.
He's the only one that looks like he wants to create something. And now, granted, when he goes into the paint, he can't ever like find enough space to get around defenders because he's just on the smaller side. But that's that scrappy guy that you're looking for in those moments to, he's going to dive on the floor. Josiah Alec is a guy that's going to dive on the floor to try to save possession or keep the ball in bounds for your team. Those 2 guys were so crucial in that stretch of Nebraska's comeback to get to the 52 mark that when Fred called that timeout, he made sure that was the look Nebraska offered again. Because why? Wisconsin couldn't stop it. They couldn't find a way to get by those 2.
Well, and it takes a immense amount of stones, really, to put your star player on the bench and just say, nope, we're riding with this group. Because you're right, Tominaga didn't play in any of the critical moments after that. I'm not sure if he played at all after that. He only played 18 minutes last night, didn't hit a 3, was only 1 for 7. I mean, if you had told anyone Nebraska's going to knock off Wisconsin, but Tominaga is only going to score 2 points, no one believes you, right? But the conviction of Hoiberg to say, hey, this is not our best lineup. This is not what got us back in the game, right? Because it wasn't Tominaga going off from 3 that got him back in the game. It was Hoiberg disrupting things defensively and Alec hustling, and then Wilcher just going supernova hot for a stretch of the game. And it's a little criminal we haven't mentioned CJ Wilcher that much yet, so I'm going to here because of a bunch of outstanding performances. His is the one that actually kept them in the game to give them a shot because he started making shots before it felt like Nebraska was back in the game, but he is the only thing that kept them And it wasn't even really within arm's reach. It was just, hey, I'm keeping this team from getting blown out right now. That's what it felt like. Is the only thing standing between Wisconsin and a boat race was CJ Wilcher. And he kept making shots, just getting it a little bit closer until the rest of the team caught up in that second half and was able to deliver that comeback. But CJ Wilcher deserves a ton of credit for what we saw last night. 22 points off the bench, 7 of 10 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3. That dude was on one last night, and is, without him, Nebraska probably does get blown out, because there was a stretch in there where Nebraska couldn't. I think they at one point they were 3 of 14 from 3, and he had 2 of the 3, and they end up going 6 of 13 on the way out. Again, he had 5 of their 9 threes for the game. That dude was the only thing tethering Nebraska to Wisconsin still, and he deserves a ton of credit for last night. And it's kind of funny, I will say, there was this moment in the second half where you're like, oh man, Wilcher's kind of feeling it. And I was so impressed that he was being aggressive, but not forcing the issue, right? When you're a shooter and you get hot, about 3 or 4 shots in, you kind of test things a little bit.
It's the Baylor Shireman method,
yeah,
right? Like
it's the
when
heat
Shireman
check.
comes down the floor and pulls one right past the half court line.
Yeah.
It's let's see if this one goes in.
Or
too.
like you're like heavily guarded, you have no space, whatever. And so I tweet that out. Immediately his next shot is a heat check. And I was like, come on, CJ, you're killing me here, bud.
And it didn't look very good.
No, I don't even think it drew iron. Like, it was brutal. But that was,
guess who got the rebound? Josiah Alec.
I was going to say, Alec got the rebound, or is either Alec or was it Gary?
Somebody down low got the rebound.
Yeah, one of the guys.
It was a hustle play.
Yeah, it was an incredible hustle play. And getting those rebounds was not the easiest thing in the world. In the first half, Nebraska was getting killed on the boards. That lineup, though, that you talked about, that they switched to, actually won the rebounding battle in the second half and in overtime. I think they were minus 13 in the first half, and they only
made sense.
And they only ended up minus 7 for the game. So in that second half, they not only held their own, they actually made up ground there. And it was because of the hustle of guys like Alec and Hoiberg and Juwan Gary, who was back, by the way, after missing a few games. A huge lift off the bench for them, because if they don't have Juwan Gary, who played 33 minutes last night, they don't win that game.
And that's funny, because going into that match, he was questionable for 1, but 2, you would expect him to be limited.
Yeah.
And 33 minutes is not limited.
No, he did not. And he didn't move like he was limited either. Like he
was feeling the flow.
He was getting after it. He had, you mentioned all the hustle plays and the defense. If they don't have Juwan Gary to take up 33 minutes in that game, they would have ran out of gas, like I was talking about. They would not have, because they only played 3 guys off the bench. They each played at least 22 minutes. They relied on those 3 guys incredibly heavily. If you don't have Gary there, who's that next guy up? I'm sure they would have found someone, but they wouldn't have been comfortable playing him 33 minutes. I can tell you that 100% sure. Just in it, from top to bottom on this roster, an incredible effort for Nebraska. And like I said, a game that I was truly stunned by watching play out, which is, again, not something that happens to me very often. There's just there's kind of a way basketball games play out, right? And you're like, I've seen this blueprint before. Let's say there's like a dozen different blueprints of how games typically play out. And then you had, like, if you're an architect, you have your dozen blueprints, and then Frank Lloyd Wright's over here building houses over rivers and into trees and around. And it's like, that's what this game was. It was this totally bizarre thing that you really hadn't seen before. And it's not just because they came down from 19 and then 16 at halftime. It's not just because, Tominaga didn't play. It's not just because Wisconsin kind of just self-destructed with 16 turnovers and not taking good shots and not being able to get back into the rhythm they had early in the game. It was all of those things put together, and the fact that Nebraska had to knock on that door seemingly 3 or 4 or 5 times to actually get it to open. It was, again, one of the most unique ways I've seen a game play out, I think, at least in recent memory.
So driving home last night,
yeah,
here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I'm talking about with the people in my car. Nebraska beats Wisconsin, a quad 1 win, a quality quad 1 win at that. If they go on the road and beat Illinois somehow, that essentially guarantees them a spot in March as long as they hit the win total.
Yeah, so
they could lose first round in the Big Ten tournament.
Yes.
And if they hit their win total of, what did we say? It was 20?
For me, it's 20. If you've got wins against Purdue and Wisconsin at home, and then you're talking about a road win at Illinois, which is actually a better win than Wisconsin would be last night, then as long that puts them at 17, if they win 3 more games, any 3 games besides that, I think they're in without. I know a lot of people are saying 21, but if you've got Purdue, Wisconsin, and at Illinois, 20 gets you in. And I don't think you have to win a game in the tournament.
And if they lose to Illinois, then I think you have to steal 2 road games.
I think you definitely need to get to 21 wins if you lose to Illinois. And you can't do that without at least 1 road win.
Well, you have to beat Michigan.
Yeah,
you have to beat Michigan on the road.
Yes.
You have to at least compete against Ohio State on the road. And Indiana.
I think
those are the 3 games that I would look at right now and say, hey, 2 of these 3 have to be wins. Northwestern is playing too strong a basketball right now to guarantee me a road win.
Yeah, it's a road win against a top 50 team. Like Northwestern, I think if I remember how the quads work right on the road, Northwestern is a quad 1 win if they were to get it. Because I think it's top 50 on the road as a quad 1.
Which would help a ton.
It would, but I also don't expect it, right? But you're looking at Indiana, that's 89. I'm doing Ken Palm here, not net. But at 89, at Indiana is 89. At Michigan is 91. Those are the 2 worst road teams left on their schedule. You have to get minimum one of those 2, ideally both. That's kind of where we're at. Coming up next, we will set up the show. We'll let you know what's coming up for you here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We will have more coverage of Nebraska and Wisconsin as well. That's Andrew Rogers. I'm Ravi Lulla here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, our friend TK chimes in. Has anyone checked on Caitlin Clark and Matt Painter? Are they okay? Do they know about the latest court storming? Fair question, TK. I don't know.
Yeah, our good friend Elijah Herbal on the afternoon show tweeted out last night, good news, no Caitlin Clarks were harmed in the making of this video. And it was the video of all the students storming the court.
Coming up on the show today at 8 o'clock, a new guest for us, somebody we haven't talked to yet, Dave Tollefson. He is a 2-time Super Bowl champion with the New York Giants. He played at Northwest Missouri State. He's local here in Omaha, but
wouldn't shock me if he's a Millard North grad as well.
He's not. He's from California. I do love talking to my Millard North grads. You know this about me. That's why Brunson and I get along so well. But no, he is a 2-time Super Bowl champion.
I got to start bringing some Kennedy Catholic grads.
Got to get I'm surprised we haven't gotten more Lindenwood guests on here.
I'll reach out to Greg right now. Well, when baseball season rolls around, we'll get Greg Amsinger.
We'll get the Lindenwood greats coming out. So Dave Tollefson will join us. I want to talk to him about kind of this experience of, obviously he went through it twice with the Giants in 07 and 11. Want to just kind of get his experience about what this time period is like, because it's so much different than really anything else a football player goes through during their career. That I really want to get his insight there. So we'll talk to Dave, see if he's got any takes on the Super Bowl coming up next week as well. Then we will talk to Tori Dixon of the Omaha Supernovas. Our good friends over in at the Supernovas will play game number 2 tomorrow. Excuse me, match number 2. I'm in basketball mode. We've been talking about
good.
Match number 2 tomorrow at the CHI Health Center. It is a 6 p.m. first serve. You can get tickets at supernovas.com. They also play Wednesday. So if you're like, my Saturday is a little busy, it's going to be nice out, I got to do a little yard cleanup, whatever, you can also hit them up on Wednesday. But, man, we are looking for a big, big crowd for our first weekend with the Supernovas. Let's go out and support professional volleyball in Nebraska.
I got to tell you, if you're doing yard work that late at night,
well, listen, maybe you're tired from the yard work all day, but
no.
No.
If you're doing yard work that late at night, you throw down your tool of whatever, your tool of choice.
Throw down the
rake
rake
in your car, and you head to CHI to watch that match.
So you can get tickets at supernovas.com. Make sure you go check it out. We will also talk to Mike Sautter, our very own Hurrdat Sports chief basketball correspondent. He's our senior basketball CEO, as he likes to call himself.
Or maybe as Ravi likes to call him.
So this is a very inside baseball joke that I keep doing. Mike Sautter did not pick his own title, but in his Twitter bio, it says
it sounds like he picked his own title.
Yeah, it says like senior basketball analyst or senior basketball correspondent.
Senior basketball analyst at Hurrdat Sports.
And listen, Mike knows what he's talking about. He does a great job.
But it doesn't mean we can't give him credit.
No, I know he hates that title, though, and so I like to make it even more grand than it is in his profile.
Well, that's a great question, Ravi Lulla.
It is a great question, Ravi Lulla.
Was it a question or a
It
statement?
wasn't. And then, of course, same story as always. We wrap up the week with our guy, Matt Vrzal, to get you headed into the weekend.
So I got to tell you one more thing about that basketball game.
Absolutely.
Before we move off of it.
I mean, we may not move. Well, we'll definitely come back to it if we move off of it.
Question for you first.
Yes.
This may be totally unrelated because I don't know anything about diabetes.
Fair.
Do you have to track your blood or your heart rate?
So I don't. I don't have to. I often will wear some sort of a smart watch device and keep track of my heart rate. So heart disease is a very common side effect, seems too light, but consequence of being diabetic, especially for a long time. It's very hard on your heart. But are you talking about the Mark Andrews story?
No, I'm talking about what happened at the Nebraska basketball game.
Because there was also
nothing to do in connection with diabetes.
Yeah,
I just wanted to know how often you track yours and what your numbers normally rest at.
So there was a guy at the Nebraska game yesterday that it was clocking at 170, right? Like that's the number on the watch.
Yeah,
which is insanely high.
Standing still.
Yes, not
just
running.
Watching a basketball game.
I think the highest mine's ever gotten was when I was playing. I think it was when I was playing basketball and I had a smartwatch on, which I don't usually when I'm playing basketball. But for some reason, I think I just didn't take my Fitbit off or whatever. But I think I got into like the high 140s, low 150s. But I was sprinting, like actively sprinting up and down the court. And the only reason I know is because my watch like kind of buzzed me a little bit like, hey, you've got a high heart rate. If you're not exercising, like go to the doctor. Like that literally is like, that's what it tells you. It's like, if you are not currently engaged in vigorous exercise, go to the hospital right now. But I was like, I'm playing basketball. I'm fine. Normally, even when I'm working out, it usually doesn't top 130. And my resting is like in the low 70s.
So it's funny you say that because a good resting heart rate for people that don't know is between 60 and 100.
Yeah.
Jack, who was having the 170 or whose heart rate was at 170, his resting, he told me, was in like the 80s.
Okay, so that's fairly normal.
Normal.
Yeah, like right in the normal range.
So for somebody to just
more than double that,
I mean, go through war like he did in that basketball game, to have his heart rate get so high. And it wasn't just him. Behind him, dude's heart rate was 130. To the right of him, dude's heart rate was like 160. Like it wasn't just Jack's heart rate that came in at 170. That's just all that I was able to grab on the video. But I was losing it because for me, like I'm overly passionate in moments like that for my St. Louis sports teams. But when it comes to Nebraska, like I'm like, man, like if they lose, it's really gonna suck.
Yeah, but you're not like a hardcore Nebraska basketball lifer.
I'm not like losing years of my life.
Yeah.
If Nebraska doesn't pull off this insane comeback against Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
He was sweating in the seat. Like, yes, we're standing up, but dude took off his sweatshirt in the first half. And then he's constantly checking his watch. It got up to 174.
Oh my gosh. That's
so
not healthy.
if that just tells you anything about how it felt in Pinnacle Bank Arena, like that sort of energy was going through the building.
That's incredible.
You know, I looked over to my buddy on the right, and he goes, Andrew, just take a peek about, because he's not a huge Nebraska fan either. He just enjoys, you know, good college basketball.
Yeah.
He goes, look around. And we're looking to the right. We're looking to the left. We look back to the right. You would have thought these individuals just took on the British for the last 48 hours.
We're out here at Yorktown.
I mean, you look right, you look left, hands are to the head. You see some people like huffing and puffing, like they just ran 4 suicides. It was insane. I mean, those are the type of people that I love being around, though.
Yeah.
Because they're so passionate about their team, their sport, whether it's football, basketball, you name it. Like those high stress pressure moments, like I can feel it. My heart rate's not beating like yours, but those are the people to surround yourself with in sports, because it shows how much they care. And it also just shows how much Nebraska cares about their team.
Well, and I have a really hard, you know, the SEC kind of does it just means more thing here. And I was like, come up to Nebraska and try to tell me it means more, because it certainly does not mean more anywhere in the country than it does here. And that's not to say it doesn't matter other places, but it's like, you can't just be like, oh, we live in the South, it means more. It's like, try us. I dare you. We are literally putting our lives on the line here for a regular season college basketball game.
I would love to take everybody's heart rate at the, we'll call it, do we do it when Nebraska takes the lead? Okay, with 30 seconds left.
While Bryce Williams is shooting the free throws, tied at 65, what were the heart rates?
And then I want to take the average of all the heart rates inside of PBA, and I bet it would have come to somewhere around like the 140, 150.
I was going to say the average is north of 140, I think. And those, to be honest, because I'm not a hardcore Nebraska basketball fan. I root for basketball in the state of Nebraska. Obviously, I'm a Creighton fan because that's kind of where I grew up with. But I want Nebraska basketball to be good all but one game a year when they play Creighton, right? Like, that's just how I am, and I root for them every other game. I want them to be good, though, and I want it to look good while they're doing it. But the people that have the heart rates of like 170 last night, those are the people I'm so happy for this season, like with the Purdue win and with the Wisconsin win. And if they were to go out and pull an upset in Champaign, like those are the people I feel so happy for, because I have some of those people in my life, and I know how loyal they've been through some truly awful basketball over the last 20 years. And they deserve it. They deserve having a fun team to root for.
What a moment.
And I pray to God that your heart rate stays under 170. Otherwise, you might not survive until the end of what's been a really fun season. So go see your cardiologist. Go get a stress test or something if you're peaking at 170 during a basketball game.
Who needs to work out when you can just watch Husker sports?
Wrapping up hour number 1 next. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's Andrew Rogers. I'm Ravi Lulla. We apparently the heart rate conversation in the last segment about your buddy topping out at 170.
174. I only got it on video at 170.
Topping out in the mid 170s during a Nebraska game while standing perfectly still. It's not even like one of those where they were like jumping up and down. He is just standing there looking at his watch. I saw the video. He's just standing there looking at his watch, and it just keeps going higher and higher. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy might die on video. But on the YouTube comments,
World Star,
on the YouTube comments, E-Bombs World, that might be before your time.
Yeah, before my time.
It's Husker fan 1 says it's normal to have high heart rate during Husker games in any sport. TK says, I have lost so many years of my life because of close Nebraska games. We have, yes, continuous close losses are excruciating. Last night it was looking like it was going to happen again. Nice to finally come out on top on one. Travis says, I exercise to have a healthy heart because I abuse the hell out of it watching Husker sports. TK says, my heart rate was probably 120 just sitting in my bed watching the game. Fair. And Husker fan 1 says, I agree. The Bryce Williams free throws had me shaking. Is there, as we were talking about this, it reminded me of a story. I'll tell you here in a second. But is there a moment, whether you're watching us on YouTube or you can hit us up on Twitter? I'm at R.A. Lulla. That's at Andrew Rogers CC. Is there a moment that you remember, whether Husker basketball, Husker football, whatever, where you just remember your heart is like pounding out of your chest and you're like, if I didn't have to see the end of this game, I would probably go to a hospital right now, because that's kind of what it felt like last night.
The 2011 Cardinals World Series, Game 6, when they're down 2 runs in the 9th inning, 2 outs, and David Freese hits a triple to tie it.
Yep.
So that moment late in the game for me. And then when the Blues in 2019 won the Stanley Cup, but it was before the game because they dominated in that. I think it was like 3-0 that they won the game. But like, just like watching that game through, knowing the Bruins on paper were a better team, that had me, that my heart rate was probably pretty high for that one. In terms of maybe something more similar to how Husker fans can relate, sports betting would be my biggest comp. And it was 2 seasons ago, Clemson, all they needed to do was win by 7 for me to cash like $4,000 on a 6-leg parlay.
Beautiful.
And the game went into double overtime, and I'm watching it on the golf course in the golf cart. And I'm getting mad because like all of my knowledge of sports went out the window that day. Like, I'm like, why are they going for 2 on like the second, like overtime possession? I'm like, wait, no, kick the PAT, kick the PAT. And so I got mad when they missed the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
So now they're only up 6.
Yep.
Whoever they were playing.
So now you got to root for the next team to score and then miss theirs.
But if they miss, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Because after that, it's just all 2-point conversions.
Yeah. So
I needed them to win by 7. And because they didn't get the 2-point conversion,
it was over.
It was over for me.
Brutal.
But watching that down, my heart rate was probably through the roof. And it's because, major money was on the line.
Got a lot of 2009 Big 12 championships against Texas in the chat saying for their highest heart rate. Travis R, not Travis S.
Was there 1 second?
Earlier. Nope, time ran out. Travis R says Huskers versus Miami in 94, which that one is the one. So my best friend from high school, his dad, he's certainly the longest running Nebraska fan that I probably have in my life. And he tells this story. I'm pretty sure it was the Orange Bowl against Miami following the 94 season. So January 1st, 95. He tells the story about how there was a moment in the game where he's watching this game and he's got all of his friends over and he jumps up when something happens and like blacks out for a second. And he's like, oh, I just had a stroke. I'm dying during this Nebraska game. And I think he just stood up too fast. His blood pressure spiked and he was okay. But like, that's the level of, people are just kind of resigned to like, oh yeah, I just had a stroke. I died during a Nebraska game. Like, that's kind of where we're at here with Husker sports. And every time I would be at his house watching a Husker game, I was just always a little bit worried. I was like, please don't die while I'm here. That would be really traumatic. But no, I didn't realize when you sent that video out that was somebody you were with.
Yeah, that was a part of my group.
I thought you had like saw the video somewhere and grabbed it and reposted it. I didn't realize that was like a person you were hanging out with. That was
my video. Like, I was holding my phone taking that video.
Travis R says, if we die, we die.
Amen. Amen, Trav.
That is the epitome.
What's your moment? What moment got your heart rate spiking?
Man,
I'm sure there's so many.
Yes, there's a bunch of them. One of the ones that come to mind immediately, I think I probably had unhealthy heart rate levels for like all of October 2004, just like that entire time.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that year.
Yeah.
What happened in 2004 in October, Shane?
There's the Red Sox came back from an 0-3 deficit against the Yankees, and then they swept some other team in the World Series.
It's a challenge.
I won't bring that up. But honestly, it wasn't even, no offense, it wasn't even the World Series that stressed me out that much because like it was the Yankees games, right?
Well, sure, when you're down 3-0.
Yeah, I was pretty stressed out. I just didn't want to get swept. I was like, please, dear God, Just let them not get swept.
Oh,
So there was like probably a solid week stretch there where I was at unhealthy heart rate levels. That comes to mind as one of the most stressed out times I've been over sports. Man, I'm trying to think, because when I was a kid, when Nebraska was really, really good in the mid 90s, nothing bad had happened yet in my Husker sports fandom. And so I was just like, yeah, of course they're going to win.
I remember the mid 90s vividly.
I just remember I'm sitting there and I was like, yeah, Nebraska wins all their games. That's what we do. I don't understand, like, why are people stressed out here, right? Because I'm like 7 years old. I don't have the trauma at that point like I do now.
Right.
But
that you've acquired now that your brain is fully developed.
Yeah, now it's fully developed and I've seen all the things, and Nebraska's lost football games in every way imaginable. At this point, I've got the requisite trauma to be stressed out. But back then when they were really good, and I was just like, yeah, Nebraska wins all their games. That's kind of just what we do here. So that was nice as a kid to kind of grow up with that. But I don't know if there's like a Husker football moment where I was that level of stressed out, just because since I've been older, the stakes haven't been as high.
I'll tell you, though, this past season, the Minnesota game had me a little stressed.
Yeah.
And the reason for it was you could kind of sense that it was happening again.
Yeah.
And
to me, that wasn't like a high heart rate. It was just like a sinking feeling in my stomach.
But for me, it was a high heart rate.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I had money on the game. Who knows?
Probably, if we're being honest.
But I knew, because after that game, we sat down at this same desk and gave a reaction show.
Yeah.
And it was not a good one. Like it was not a fun one.
No.
To do.
I'm sitting there that whole time, just
mad.
And just sitting there like, please, I don't want to do this show again, because I've done that exact reaction show with Nebraska gets the lead, they fumble it away, sometimes literally, and you're just sitting there and you're like, no, I've seen this movie before. I've read this script before. We talked about blueprints with football games earlier. I've designed this house before. I don't want to live there anymore.
And that game was locked up for Nebraska.
Yeah,
they had that.
Should have been. Yeah.
And what happened? Well, Jeff Sims throws it into triple coverage.
Yep.
And people are like, wait a second, why did he throw the football?
Yeah, don't
and then
do
what
that.
happened next? Was it an Anthony
I think
Grant
that was
fumble?
Anthony Grant fumble.
Or was that before it was something. They could have been interchangeable. But that game right there had my heart just it was so, my heart rate was so high because I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And it was probably a little bit of anxiety.
You felt this sense of inevitable doom.
I'm just like, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we go again. And now I've adopted. I've been adopted into the Husker fan base.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy for somebody to get adopted into a fan base that, isn't winning. Meanwhile, like Chiefs fans are known as bandwagon fans.
Yeah.
That, join once Patrick Mahomes wins them a first Super Bowl, and now that Taylor Swift's at every game, which we can probably get into that a little bit later as well. Yes, Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor, bro.
That's probably the first time Shane's actually gotten like the name, because normally it's like, man, what's that guy's name? And then Shane will just go through all of the names that Bo says.
Kenny
Taylor,
Levante?
Kenny Levante.
You talking to a ghost?
But yeah, it's like I'm a part of this now. And do I want to be a part of this? Hell yeah, I want to be a part of this because it's fun.
You got adopted in during the rough times, so you got to stick it out for when things get good again, right? Like that's the payoff that we're. Travis says that is the epitome of bandwagon. Listen, no, when you hop on when it's bad, it's not bandwagon.
Well, I think he means the Chiefs.
Oh yeah. But when you hop on when it's bad, that's not bandwagon. You're just maybe a little bit sadistic in your sports fandom.
People are checking my heart rate
to
see if I'm okay.
Well, they might be doing like a psyche eval too. Like, why would you sign up for this, man? Like, you don't have to do this. Why are you doing this to yourself?
And that was the day Andrew Rogers was checked into a mental institution.
I think a lot of us could be checked into mental institutions for the way that we act about our sports, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it a good time when you do have moments like last night where Nebraska pulls off one of the more improbable victories that I've seen in a very long time. Coming up next, this guy was part of an incredibly improbable victory back in 2007.
A couple of them.
When the Giants upset the undefeated Patriots. We're going to talk to Dave Tollefson, two-time Super Bowl champ, former Northwest Missouri State great. I don't know who's a more famous Northwest Missouri State grad, Dave Tollefson or Shane Schillerberg. We'll see.
Shane, you went there?
We'll see. We'll talk to Dave coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Go Bearcats.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's Andrew Rogers. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline by Dave Tollefson, 2-time Super Bowl champion with the New York Giants. Dave, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, no problem, fellas.
So, Dave, I got to ask, this is one of the most unique times of year for a football player, and you have the unique experience of having gone through it a couple times. What is so much different about this off week between the championship games and the Super Bowl versus your regular bye week? Obviously, the stakes are a lot higher, but just from a practicality standpoint, how much different is it?
It's quite a bit. Obviously, we all go through bye weeks, but this is a bye week where you're preparing for a game. And I'm sure you guys have heard this. Everybody's heard it. Really, with the 2-week-long preparation period, the first week, you're doing game planning because when you get to the location of where the Super Bowl's at, which this year is bigger than ever, it's Las Vegas, you're getting pulled in every different direction. So you're really trying to get all your preparation work while you're at home. You're comfortable. So it's just it is different because your travel day, you're not going to play a game. You're going to the location where you're going to play. It's quite a bit different.
Dave, we come in with a highlight. Al Michaels talking about the win against Brady. And, Brady was one of those guys that people labeled as you don't bet against him. You just don't bet against Brady.
Yep.
And then in this Super Bowl, you have a guy like Mahomes who's kind of taken over that narrative of don't bet against Mahomes. So what's your response to those that say don't bet against Mahomes as someone that beat the GOAT not just once, but twice?
What's the spread?
The 49ers, I believe, are 2-point favorites.
Yeah. I would say the same, for Mahomes. And I really said it last week when I talked to anybody. I don't bet on football. I just really enjoy watching it. And I think, man, when you start betting on games, it becomes a little more serious.
You start to hate it more.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can't bet against them. You can't. Mahomes, it's kind of incredible. I was talking to my wife. We had some middle school wrestling last night at the Tacoma on our way home. And it's kind of crazy, Mahomes' career path. And the craziest thing about it is it's on the heels of Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we all thought with Tom, oh, this is never going to happen again, right? Who goes to 10 Super Bowls? Well, Mahomes is halfway there. That literally the next guy is going to do the same thing. So it's kind of incredible to see what he's done. I'll tell you, this Kansas City team is one of the scariest teams I think they've had because of how good that defense is. And then you pair it with really, as stupid as it sounds, an all-time great quarterback. How can you 5 years starting, 5 AFC championships, 4 Super Bowls? And the crazy thing about it, fellas, is he's probably underpaid, right?
Yeah. I don't know that there's a number big enough that you could pay Mahomes and have it not be worth it.
I agree.
So, Dave, let me ask you this. As you have this very unique experience that sort of mirrors what we're seeing now with Patrick Mahomes, your teams were able to beat Brady twice, despite the fact that it was always a terrible idea to pick against Brady, even though sometimes he didn't end up on the right side of things. What were you guys able to do? I know that the pass rush and that defensive line had a ton to do with the ability to beat Brady without, getting pressure without bringing extra guys. Is that something you think the 49ers can replicate against Mahomes with their defensive front?
Well, they're going to have to. I know in both Super Bowl victories that we had played the Patriots in the regular season. Obviously, in 07 we lost, but in 2011 we won at their place. So there was some familiarity and honestly, with the Patriots, there was so much continuity with their coaching staffs and whatnot at the time that you kind of had an idea of who they were and what they're going to try to do. But yeah, you have to get after the quarterback. I mean, they're going to have to put pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Now, is that going to work? I can't tell you. I mean, he could throw over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's the type of guy he is. But we had a very specific game plan, and we knew in both Super Bowl runs, as far as the defensive line, kind of the subgroup of the defense, if we didn't play great, we weren't going to win the game. And I think that's the pressure that these guys in San Francisco have to put on themselves. If they don't play well, or if they don't play great, they can play well. If they don't play great up front, you're not going to beat Mahomes. If you give him a chance late in the game, which we took that away in both Super Bowls, they had very seconds of time the last time Tom Brady got the ball. I'm not less than a minute, maybe less than 30 seconds at the end of the game if it's within reach. That's probably what you're dealing with. You got to give him less than 30 seconds the last time he has the ball to win the game, right?
Yeah. Dave, it's interesting this conversation with Mahomes and the Chiefs. We're talking with Dave Tollefson, 2-time Super Bowl champ with the New York Giants, because for most of Mahomes' career, it's been about the Kansas City offense. It's been about his ability to put up points and to get the ball to his weapons. And then this year, the script flips a little bit, right? You mentioned how great that defense is. By far the best defense he's had as a quarterback of the Chiefs. But late in the season and into the playoffs, it seems like he's found a rhythm on offense with a guy like, obviously, Kelsey has reemerged as being a really dominant force. Pacheco's played really well. And then all of a sudden, you've got some of these receivers that were much maligned throughout the season starting to make plays. How has that progression kind of played out in your eyes, and how have they been able to do that when they struggled so much early in the season offensively?
Number one, it has to do with the veteran leadership they have on offense with Kelsey and Mahomes. And really, as poor as they played up to their standard early mid-season, you knew it wasn't going to stay like that. And that's why I said earlier, the scary thing about them is the defense, because they've relied so heavily on Mahomes. Now, that's what the greats do, though, like Patrick Mahomes, is when it matters, they play their best. And it really didn't surprise me it took some time this year with some of the wide receiver issues they had early on. They kind of had to figure out how it was going to work. Now, Travis Kelsey, I mean, the middle of the field in general is pretty soft when it comes to defensive play, so you can take advantage of it. That's why you see a bunch of slot receivers and tight ends with catches and stuff, because it's just such a wide open area. But what's so difficult about Travis and Patrick's, what they do, is you've heard Kelsey say, like, he'll make routes up. So, like, you'll call a specific defense to cover this concept, right? And, like, Travis will just, like, make up a route. And so that it's really hard when guys do that. It's just difficult because you're doing the right thing defensively with your drops, your zone, your match coverage, whatever, but then this guy just makes a route up and they get a first down. So they're doing some special things with the tight end position, the quarterback position in Kansas City, and it's a problem for people.
Dave, speaking of catches in the middle of the field, sometimes you need a little luck to go your way to get the job done, and you were a part of that team that got a big chunk of that luck when David Tyree made that catch on his helmet. What were you?
You must be a Patriots fan.
Well, you gonna say it wasn't luck, it was skill?
Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Okay. So that was going to be my question, because based on that response, you don't seem like you're a believer in luck.
David Tyree practiced that catch all the time. I'm just kidding. No, I am. I for sure. The NFL, I'm goose hunting right now.
Oh, you're okay. You're okay.
You guys.
Full disclosure, I'm a Bears fan, so I've had more woes than wins.
Oh, you poor guy. Let's not draft Caleb Williams. That's a great idea. But I think the NFL, I'm not a big fan of the word luck, really, because there's so much work. But the NFL is the hardest tournament in professional sports, right? Like, you remember Asante Samuel in 2007, he drops that pick on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly, that's probably a bigger deal than Tyree's catch. Like, that game was over if he picks that off. So the NFL, you do need, but you also have to have yourself in a position where you can take advantage of those plays. The game's tight, right? Like, you have an opportunity after maybe being lucky or being unlucky to rectify the situation. So, I guess it makes sense you're worried about luck being a Bears fan because you probably think all this is bad luck, right?
I don't know if it would be bad luck. I would just call it incompetence is one word I would think of.
So now, like, the Cubs win a World Series, so now it's like, now look at the Bears suck. We got to deal with this.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because I'm not a Cubs fan. So my dad's from Chicago. I was born in St. Louis, so I adopted the teams that St. Louis didn't have. And so when the Rams got stripped away, and I kind of grew up more of a Bears fan than a Rams fan, I was only a fan of those teams that St. Louis didn't have. So I can't stand the Cubs. And so when they won the World Series, it was even worse.
Well, I'm an A's fan.
Oh, so
like,
you're struggling.
Yeah.
You're struggling.
You don't even know where your team's playing this year.
Oakland doesn't even have a team anymore, if anything.
That
I think that, like, they might have like a professional cornhole team that plays in Oakland now. That's like it.
That sounds about right, Dave.
And they might move too. I think Vegas is going to try to steal them as well.
Just make sure you get the Ocho at home.
I was saying, don't let Vegas steal your cornhole team. That would be a disaster. Dave, so I wanted, so you don't like the word luck, which is fair, but you do, like you said, you do need some breaks to kind of go your way, right? And you have to be in position for those breaks to matter. And that's what your teams did with the Giants, the best with the Patriots, is win. Because it's not like even that 2007 team that was on paper perfect, at least in their record, it's not like they never made mistakes. Just most teams were not in a position to take advantage of those mistakes when it happened, right? Like, you guys kept yourselves close enough.
100%. That 2007 team for the Patriots, we lose that game, and that team is unquestionably the greatest professional football team of all time, right? So you're right, but we knew that. Like, and again, what I was saying to you earlier about the defensive front, and this is specifically for the 49ers and for the Chiefs as well. They're going to have to get after Brock Purdy, but you can't give them anything, right? And I guess maybe that's more important than taking advantage of the breaks you get, is making them make every play. I look back to 2011 and that first safety, Tom Brady throwing the ball away, just forcing them to do things that put them in a position that they're not comfortable in, and so, yeah, you would expect some things to go your ways. You don't want penalties, you don't want turnovers. But if you can force them to maybe do some things that's uncharacteristic, then you can take advantage of that, right?
So, Dave, I'm curious here because obviously the Chiefs have way more Super Bowl experience than the 49ers do. There's some guys on this 49ers team that were there back in the 2019 season, 2020 Super Bowl when these two teams faced off. But the 49ers roster turned over quite a bit more since then. How much of an advantage is it to have some of that Super Bowl experience because of how unique the game sort of plays out with the, it's obviously you've got all the fanfare and everything going on around it, but just the actual pace of the game is a lot different, right?
Yeah, I think it's huge, man. The halftime's longer, the TV timeouts are longer, the warm-up's a little different. Like, I remember, like, the whole team suited up, even the practice squad guys, for like the warm up, like pregame. So it is a lot different, and that experience helps. And and even, you're meeting all week in a hotel room, or, I think we did it, not in a hotel room, but at a hotel. In 11, we were in a hotel for our meetings and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 07, we were actually at the Cardinals facility. But, yeah, the experience is huge, man. And you have to kind of lead some of the younger guys and show them, I think the big thing for Strahan when we got to Arizona was the first day we got there, we all went out and had a really good time and ate dinner together. And that was it. That was it. No one else went out the rest of the week. We were like, listen, we're going to enjoy the first night we're here. And that played, we would, Strahan's things like, we will celebrate after we win the game. We're going to have a good time together the first day we're here. And then it was bedtime, rest, eat, practice, get ready. And for someone that had been there and lost, which Michael had against Baltimore, that plays. That's a legitimate thing.
Dave, your story is so unique as I kind of like look back.
Lucky. You want to say lucky? Is that what you want to say?
You caught some breaks and you took advantage of them, right?
Yeah, you did. You caught a lot of breaks, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how lucky you were to end up in Maryville, Missouri. But in Northwest Missouri State was a great football program. But first off, I got to ask, what are your thoughts on Maryville?
You said what? You said was a great football program. It is a great. Man, you're killing me.
No. You got to learn about my background here, Dave. I went to Lindenwood, and you guys killed us in the MIAA.
But you're very unlucky.
Well, he's a Bears fan. We established he's not lucky.
Yeah, you know what? I've gone downhill in all of football fandom my entire life.
Maryville's unbelievable. That place changed my life.
So it's funny you say that because it changed my life a little bit too. I went to a couple broadcasting conventions, and it's where my buddy, my best friend, and I, we love going back to Maryville.
Yeah, it's incredible. And growing up in California, the small college scene just isn't there. I mean, obviously you guys are football guys, but a lot of the small schools in California, Division II, they canceled their programs. Sonoma State, where Larry Allen went, Chico State, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I think Humboldt State might be the only Division II program left in the state. So it's just the small college scene just isn't there. And so everybody back home, when I left to go to Northwest Missouri State, they thought I was going to Northwestern in the Big Ten. I kind of thought I was too. I didn't know, like Pittsburgh State. I thought it was like the University of Pittsburgh.
Yep, not Kansas.
I didn't know. Yeah. So but it's an incredible place. It still is. I try to go once a year to a game. I got 3 boys. Bring them down there. It's incredible. It changed my life. Met my wife there. Obviously, I'm not from here, and now we live here and make our home here. So, and won a lot of football games, man. I tell you what, winning is fun.
I'm sure.
So, Dave, let me ask you, because you said, Northwest Missouri State changed your life. You're from California. You went out to a junior college out there, right? Am I right there?
Yep.
So but there's a little gap in there between the junior college and when you end up at Northwest Missouri State. Like, how did that all play out? Because as Andrew was alluding to, your story is really unique in terms of ending up in the NFL.
Yeah, I got really poor grades. So I didn't get my AA in junior college, and I really wasn't passing my classes. And a friend of mine from San Francisco named Damian Chumley, he transferred to Northwest Missouri State. He played safety, and I was a carpenter. He called me one day at work, and he's like, "You got to come out here and play football." I'm like, "Where?" He's like, Northwestern. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll play the Big Ten." So again, I had shoulder surgery, hooked up with these guys that trained where Charles Woodson trained at, and literally just kind of matured into it, and so once I got to Maryville, I broke my foot, so I actually didn't play for 3 seasons. So 01, 02, 03, I didn't even play football, and then got my act together and got really lucky.
Oh, you got lucky, huh? Oh, yeah. It's funny how that works.
The only thing that I'd attest to luck is my wife meeting my wife and her
Oh,
actually still
good
staying
one.
with me.
that you just saved.
I'll say-
That is a get out of jail free card moment right there.
Make sure-
Blasting that
100.
over the airwaves.
Make sure you find this podcast and that you're just happen to listen to it when she's around.
Dave, tell me, because you said your grades weren't that great. I'm curious. What was your Wonderlic test score?
What was it? I actually got a funny story. I think it was 32.
Well, that's not bad.
Josh Lane. Yeah, I got 27 my ACT. I graduated high school with like a 1.2 GPA.
So you're smart. You're just a bad student.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
School is not my forte. Like I went every day. I just didn't do anything.
What's
So,
the funny story?
I'll tell you. So Josh Lamberson, he's the head coach at Central Missouri now.
Mm-hmm.
We were seniors together at Northwest Missouri State. So like our junior year, I forget what the name is, but like the NFL has groups of teams that will send like one scout in, and they do all this junior testing stuff like that. So Josh was like a academic All-American. Like he won the academic Heisman, never got a B in college, blah, blah. So we go in to take this test, and there's like 5 of us in there. You have 10 minutes, it's 50 questions, and blah, blah, blah. So we walk out, and I'm like, how'd it go? He's like, oh, it went all right. I was like, how many questions did he answer? He's like, 16. And he goes, what about you? And I go, 33. And he looks at me. He's like, what? And so, like, I think my claim to fame in the New York Giants locker room, because we had a really smart dudes, Justin Tuck, Notre Dame, Matthias Kiwanuka, went to Boston College.
Yeah.
Barry Cofield was a Northwestern guy. And I had the highest Wonderlic score at Northwest Missouri State.
Hey, yeah, baby.
Love to hear it.
And I used it, too. I'd always give all of them crowds. I won more playoff games than you guys won games in the regular season. So don't get me crap.
Dave, real quick, we got about a minute left here. Okay, so I got to ask, defensive lineman, did you have a sack dance? Did you have like a go-to sack celebration? Because I'm reading
Roadhouse,
something here.
Man.
That's what I read. It was a Roadhouse celebration?
Yeah, it was when the Metrodome collapsed. And we were in Kansas City. We got stranded in Kansas City, and I ordered a bunch of tacos for the D-line, like 200 tacos, and they delivered them from this local spot. And we were watching Family Guy, and it was when Peter Griffin
Roadhouse.
watched Yes. And Barry Cofield from Northwestern, he's like, Dave, I bet you won't do that. So I'm like, of course I will, because I don't care. Like, I'm in the NFL and I shouldn't be. Like, you think, like, whatever. So we play Minnesota in Detroit on Monday night, and I get a sack, and I did a roundhouse kick.
Oh, that's
And
incredible.
it was the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen in your life. And it totally made sense.
Incredible. Dave, we appreciate
And now
you.
the new Roadhouse is coming out. I'm jacked up, dude. I didn't see a roundhouse kick in the preview, though.
I would say maybe we'll get together, have a little Roadhouse watch party.
I would love it.
I'll teach you guys how to do it. It don't look like it used to, and it never looked good, but it's worse now.
Got to get that leg up there,
Did
Dave.
it get to a 45-degree angle?
Oh, no. Groin torn.
Dave, we appreciate your time. We'll hopefully catch up again soon, okay?
Yeah, no problem. Take care, fellas.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
That's Dave Tollefson, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Tori Dixon of the Omaha Supernovas. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Andrew Rogers with me. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are brought to you by our friends at Warhorse Sportsbook and Casino. If hopefully over the last month, when I've been begging you, been telling you to get your entries in for the $100,000 prop card challenge and the $20,000 grand prize drawing for Warhorse's Festival of Games, hopefully you have done that because your deadline was yesterday. Now,
The window is closed.
you just got to wait a few days, okay? February 5th, the prop cards come out. You go 25 for 25 on those prop cards, and you get your shot at $100,000 for going perfect in that prop card. But even if you don't, you still got a shot at $20,000 grand prize drawing in cash or free slot play. make sure you are a Warhorse Rewards member and you go validate those entries at the casino in Lincoln to make sure you are eligible for the prizes, because nothing would hurt my feelings more than if you went 25 for 25 and didn't get your $100,000 because you didn't validate your entries. Go to the casino in Lincoln, swipe your rewards card, and validate those entries. If you have any questions, confused at all, go to warhorsecasino.com for all the details on how to make sure you are eligible to win. That's Warhorse Sportsbook and Casino. No bets, no glory. Shane, we good?
We're still waiting.
Okay. We are efforting Tori Dixon from the Omaha Supernovas. The Supernovas play tomorrow night, February 3rd, 6 p.m. at CHI Health Center. Tickets available at supernovas.com.
And for those wondering, Tori is the middle hitter in the starting lineup for the Supernovas, so she has a strong presence for that team.
And a ton of pro experience all across the world. So hopefully we're able to connect with Tori here in a minute. But another team playing at...
By the way, real quick, that interview that we had with David, that was great. I appreciate that. And a lot of Northwest Missouri State talk. I really enjoyed that.
Where's he going with this?
I really enjoyed that. So
I told you,
you're welcome.
I'm not sure who's the most famous alum from whether Shane or Dave is more.
I forgot to ask him about A&G's. There's this Greek restaurant there. Was that there when you went to school?
No.
Because the guy has owned it for a long period of time. He is so Greek that he doesn't speak English.
Okay.
And he plays it's not a guitar, but he plays on Saturdays, and it's I don't even know, because I feel like I'm so I don't want to be rude by not knowing exactly what it is.
It's a guitar-like string instrument.
But it's like an instrument that you would probably hear in a small Greek restaurant.
Sure,
in Greece. I don't really know what it is, but he was awesome.
Yeah,
incredible. Owns this restaurant, and I'm like, how did you end up in Maryville?
That's all. I always wonder.
Maryville will change your life, just like David said.
It's true.
I mean, what a great segment
he went to Northwestern.
I'll go play in the Big Ten. What do you mean? What do you mean Pittsburgh's in Kansas? No, that was great stuff from Dave. We really appreciate him joining us. Hopefully we'll catch up with him again soon. But yeah, he's got one of the most, hopefully we'll get a chance to dig into it some more at a later date, but he's got one of the most unique stories. And we kind of got into it a little bit there. Took 3 years off from football between junior college and Northwest Missouri State. And he was part of maybe the biggest upset in NFL history with the 2007 Super Bowl. So just a really cool experience that he's had, and a really cool journey that he's had through his life from California to Missouri, now to Omaha, where he makes his home. But we really appreciate Dave joining us. Another team that plays tonight at CHI Health Center. Tomorrow you got your Supernovas. Tonight your Creighton Blue Jays play against the Butler Bulldogs. This is a game Creighton should be okay. It is a sold-out game, so if you want tickets, you might be. Maybe they'll release some standing room only, but officially sold out. The Jays are on a 3-game winning streak here towards the end of January and now into the month of February. We've talked about this a little bit, Andrew, but this is a really important stretch for Creighton to stack some wins, because they've got Butler at home tonight. They go at Providence, which is always a tough place for them to play. And Providence has sort of seemingly figured some things out after the Bryce Hopkins injury. But then you go at Xavier, who's struggling, Georgetown at home, and then at Butler. You probably, if you're looking at that, I look at that stretch of 5 games and say, I probably want them to go 4-1 if they are who I think they are, right? You can drop either at Providence or at Butler, and I'll understand that. They don't play particularly well in either of those places, but you got to get one of them, and you have to beat Xavier on the road, because Xavier is struggling this year. They probably need to go 4-1 in that stretch, and then end of February into early March, that is money time for the Jays, where that 5-game stretch, there's only 10 games left in the season, but that second 5-game stretch to end the regular season, that'll tell us who Creighton is going in to postseason play, because you get UConn at home. They get another crack at UConn after how terrible they looked in Connecticut earlier in the season. Then they go at St. John's. St. John's playing really good basketball. That was an incredibly close game at home. They take that game on the road. They've got Seton Hall at home, Marquette at home, and then they go at Villanova. I have no idea what Villanova is going to be like at that point in the season.
Well, they lost to Butler last time out for 1, but anytime Creighton plays Villanova, it's their kryptonite. Dixon just finds a way to make every single shot on all ends of the floor. And Nova just has this sort of confidence that when they step on the floor against Creighton, they act like they're facing DePaul. Yeah, like that's how Villanova at least feels in those moments, or at least that's how it comes across, right? Villanova is just so dominant and has been so dominant lately against Creighton. It'll be a test for the Blue Jays, how they come out in that game, for 1, but 2, how that sets them up for the Big East tournament following.
Yeah, I'm more curious about, just because Villanova, I mean, they've lost 5 in a row. They're not playing good basketball right now. I can very easily see the wheels coming off of this thing for Villanova.
You could.
That's why I'm curious, because that game is the very last game of the season. And listen, the first game in Omaha was a coin flip. It went to overtime. Could have gone either way. They split the series against Creighton and Villanova last year. I just look at that game at the end of the season, and I wonder what place Villanova will be in, because there's a chance they're not really playing for anything by that point in the year, which would be A, super unusual for Villanova, and B, I think changes the dynamic of that game a little bit as well.
Still, though, when you face a conference opponent, you're coming in. If you're not playing for anything, you still want to take down Creighton. Like,
yeah,
a top team like that. And
I'm not
a lot of
saying
times, and you've played on teams like this, and so have I. You just know going into games that you're going to win the game. Like, you just have that. You're showing that sort of energy, and then it seems like the basketball gods are with you, right? And so, like, that's just how Villanova plays against Creighton. At least that's how it seems over the last couple of seasons.
I've also been on teams, though, where things didn't go how they were expected to or how we thought they could. And by the end of the year, whether people want to admit it or not, you kind of just want to be done. You get fatigued. Mentally, you get fatigued. You get to the point where it's like, man, we thought we had aspirations to do X, Y, and Z. We thought we could be competitive in the conference. We thought, okay, we go to the NCAA tournament after maybe not being what we thought we could be last year. And when things get off the rails, there's a point where you're like, man, I kind of just want this to be over. Not always. And that'll tell you a lot about whether or not Kyle Neptune's the guy for the job or not, as he's only in year 2. If he's able to keep this team engaged and ready to go by that end of the season game against Creighton at Villanova, then I think you'll find out a lot about him. That's where I thought I found out the most about Greg McDermott, was the season after Doug's senior year. They had that magical run, obviously ends disappointingly, and then they really, really struggled the next year. That team by the end of the season didn't look like they were ready to be done. They kept fighting. They were in every game, or pretty much every game. They had leads against much better teams late in games. They just weren't quite good enough to get over the hump, but they never quit. That, honestly, to this day, I think is one of Greg McDermott's most impressive coaching performances over the course of the year, because that was the year that you could see the culture. Kind of like with Nebraska this past year with Matt Rule, right? Losing 4 straight games to end the year when you're like, man, we are on the cusp of a bowl. We got this. Let's go. And then you start to feel it slipping away. But the wheels never fell off. They were in every game. They were fighting until the last second. They were engaged.
I get that.
They were
like
there.
Situationally where you are in the schedule, I know where your head's
Yeah.
at. But
that's why I think that
there are
interesting.
times just in a season when you're like, no, I know I'm going to win this game again.
For sure. But tonight, Butler, 8 o'clock, and Creighton,
who's a lot better than I think people.
Yeah,
Butler's better.
Butler's better than people think they were going to be, and that's going to be a challenging
flip
game.
The roster, if I remember correctly, from last year to this year.
Thad Matta did a lot of work in year 2 at Butler, and they are a better team than people realize. So that'll be a fun game at CHI tonight. Coming up next, we will wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. we will reschedule with the Supernovas for next week. They play on Wednesday next week as well, so we'll get somebody then. Just had a little scheduling conflict this morning, but they do play tomorrow night at CHI. Make sure you go to supernovas.com for
To secure those
tickets.
seats.
Make sure you get those seats.
Look at this, man. Look at this. How does this happen?
It's every day.
Everybody at home. How does this happen?
Every day. I don't know how it happens.
Like, I don't do anything different other than drop my headset, pick it up.
yeah,
drop my
it's not
headset,
like you're
pick it up.
playing with it while you're not like playing with the cord while we're on break. It's just put it down, put it back on.
And when I say
It
drop,
ends up
don't worry, boss man.
set down.
I set it down
gently.
gently.
And you end up with this like rat's nest with
Yeah,
this.
but like what?
I don't know what's happening.
This right here is like the necklace that you hate untangling, like the chain.
It's like if you ever stuck a pair of headphones in your pocket, it comes out like that
Yep.
no matter what you do.
or
to
like
it.
your computer cord,
Yep.
or one better, the extension cord in your garage.
always
You
comes
hate
out like
when it-
that.
or a hose, right?
Oh
The
yeah.
hose out back. How does it end up doing this? I don't know.
You got to be careful with the hose out back to make sure it doesn't get tangled there. That's why you got to have one of those like little wheelie things, that like one of the crank deals.
Yep. The thing that kind of like makes it look nice in
Yeah,
the back.
yeah.
I normally have
Unfurls it.
I have the hose now that is like tangle free.
Oh, okay.
So
Does it
like,
actually? Is it
you
actually
just, yeah,
tangle
because
free?
you just bunch it up and it's not really rubber.
It's like a different material.
Yeah, and it expands as water goes
Sure.
through it. So that is a must for every homeowner. I gotta tell
Interesting.
ya, it's totally worth it.
TK says, "Just be better, AR."
Hey, he can shut it.
Let's do a little Hurrdat hot seat here as we wrap up hour number 2. We didn't get to any Hurrdat hot seat on Tuesday. We were too busy.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Today's Friday.
I have no idea where I am right now. Yesterday we didn't get into
TGIF, Ravi.
Oh my goodness. We didn't get into any Hurrdat hot seat yesterday because we were too busy. We got a little bit scheduled for today because I got some burning questions to ask my guy, Andrew
Okay,
Rogers,
start it
over
off
here.
then.
I had hand surgery last week, right? It's on my right hand. It's my dominant hand. There's I'm starting to get a little bit,
Not debatable.
of well, maybe not dominant. It's my strong hand. I don't know how dominant it is. I'm not a good ball handler either way. I'm just spot up shooter. But it's starting to get a little bit of movement back, as you can see but still limited. So I've been, obviously doing a lot of things left-handed this week. For you personally, what would be the hardest daily activity to complete left-handed?
Writing is incredibly difficult. So like if I had to sign,
Sure.
like normally I get like checks in the
Yeah.
mail or
The check's in the mail.
if I
See, I don't write.
if I
that
only
much.
have one hand to type, that would kind of suck.
So I can type. I'm allowed to type.
Yeah. Writing though would be tough. If that's not considered daily.
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
Cooking with my left hand
Ooh,
would
yeah.
be tough.
I was trying to cut some lettuce up yesterday or 2 days ago.
Mhm.
That was really, really challenging. I thought I was going to lose some fingers for sure.
Right.
And I was like, maybe I'll just tear this.
see
instead.
what I would end up doing
Yeah.
is just taking the onion chopper
Yeah.
and putting like
Oh,
bits and
that's-
pieces of
that's
lettuce
smart.
underneath it
Yeah.
and then just bang the top. But yeah, no, cooking everything with my left hand because the only thing I do with my left hand when I cook is hold the saucepan so that it doesn't spin on
Yeah.
me
So you can
as I'm stirring.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I do left-handed. So if I had to switch,
Yeah.
I mean it just feels so weird doing
Feels
everything.
unnatural.
Totally
Yeah.
unnatural with the wrong hand. That would be it for me.
So a lot of people go like, like going to the bathroom and like wiping left hand, which is challenging. Don't get me wrong. You figure it out after a couple days. I'll be honest. I don't cook ever, basically. Brushing your teeth left-handed is one people bring up a lot. It is really challenging.
Again, that's one of the more unnatural.
Yeah,
things.
you're just like, what's happening here? That one I got used to after a few days. The one, and this is kind of like cooking, but I don't cook for myself because I just am incapable. I put my dog food, my dog's like food bowls together, right? So I give them kibble, and then I put some wet food on top of it and kind of mix it all
Sure.
together. So very similar to
so
cooking.
the mixing of the
Like trying
kibble
to,
and the dry food.
yeah, like trying to mix together
Or the
their
wet food,
food,
rather.
even scooping it out of the can.
Mhm.
I feel like a child learning how to like eat for or like the first time you ever use chopsticks and you don't know what you're doing. That's what I feel like every time I'm putting my dog's food together. It's been a week. I'm still not any better at it. It's a disaster.
My question for you is this.
Yeah.
You can only pick 2.
Okay.
Okay. Play Augusta one time.
Okay.
Free golf at your local club for a lifetime.
Okay.
1 free golf holiday a year.
Okay.
Play golf for the rest of your life like a scratch golfer.
Ooh.
Or play around with Tiger Woods.
Ooh. So that's a really challenging one for me because I'm not a huge golfer.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, in my early to mid 20s, golf a ton. And then just the last 10 years or so, haven't as much. And so some of those, like free golf for life at my local club, doesn't necessarily sound that appealing because I don't know how much I'm going to go, right?
Sure.
If it's free, maybe I would go more, but it's not like I'm going out and golfing 3-4 times a month and spending a ton of money there. So I don't know how much that would help me out. So the ones I kind of I gravitate to are either playing Augusta, because obviously it would be terrible and it would take me like 12 hours to get through the course with IM as a
but it'd be so worth it.
But it is you play like the number of people that can say they've played Augusta is an incredibly small list. So that's an elite experience, right? Same thing with playing golf with Tiger Woods. He'd probably be really frustrated watching me, but maybe we'd have a good time and just be able to share that experience. So super unique there. But the scratch golfer is the one that stopped me in my tracks a little bit, because if I was a scratch golfer, I would probably play more, because part of my issue with golf now is that I don't play frequently enough that when I do play, it always feels like I'm almost starting over.
Right.
That's the hard thing about golf, is if you don't play consistently, you're moving backwards in terms of your skill level for the most part. At least I do, because I'm not very good. There's some people that are just natural and like, good for you. I'm not one of those people. So, but if I could go out and know I'm a scratch golfer all the time, I'd probably go more.
You would absolutely go more because it's
fun. Like, and
it's totally addicting when you get good at that sport.
When you're good at something, it becomes more and more addicting. And so I thought when you started this, I thought I was going to pick Augusta. I think I'm going to go scratch golfer, though.
Okay. Well, you get 2.
I get 2?
Yeah, you can only pick 2.
If I'm a scratch golfer, I'm definitely playing Augusta. Without a doubt. Like, I'm playing Augusta as a scratch golfer. That would be an incredible experience.
You would have to pick one of those, either playing with Tiger or playing at Augusta. Because that gives you a story of a lifetime right there.
And you're right on point there, Shane. Yeah. I'm picking being a scratch golfer and playing with Tiger.
Yeah, that's the only other one.
That, first off, playing around with Tiger would be a highlight of anyone's life.
Yeah.
Yes, playing Augusta would be great too, but if I'm a scratch golfer and I play with Tiger probably could hook me up to get onto Augusta. So like, think about like the doors Tiger Woods opens for you, especially if you're good.
Yeah, especially
like,
if you're pretty decent.
If you're okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm a par golfer, like if I shoot even, and that's what, 72.
Yeah.
If I shoot 72
most
with
places,
Tiger, and maybe I have a birdie here or there. Tiger's going to be pretty impressed that I shot 3 under with him on a round, or just even par. He's going to be like, man, next time we play together, especially if he has a good time, we're going to play Augusta.
Can you imagine shooting par at Augusta though? Like
it would be great, but I think I could still get there after playing around with Tiger.
So what you're doing is you're asking the genie for unlimited wishes. That's what you're trying to do right now. You're
absolutely not. No, I'm leaving it up to chance.
You're like, my wish is for more wishes.
I am leaving it up for chance. No, at first though, because I love to travel.
Yeah.
1 free golf holiday a year, because if I hear that, think about the endless opportunity.
Yeah.
Because maybe the golf holidays to Augusta.
See, that's the one that I didn't even consider because I don't like traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So I that didn't even cross my mind.
I love traveling, but I would not pass up the chance to play with Tiger. I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
I could not. He's been so impactful to why I watch the sport of golf.
Sure.
That I would never do it. I would never pass up that chance. He's like you watching Michael Jordan.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, that's Tiger
like
Woods to me.
if I could play one-on-one with Michael Jordan, and if this was a basketball scenario, that is one of them for sure. No questions asked. Like, that is a no-brainer for me. So I get that for sure.
But also I think about like all the amazing golf holes around the world.
Yeah.
And, you have that really tall golf hole in South Africa, I believe it is, where like the green is the size of a pea and you hit from like Mount Everest.
Yeah, you're like hitting off a cliff basically.
Right.
Yeah,
and if you hit the green or if you get a hole in one, you either win some insane prize, golf for life, whatever
Yeah.
it is. No one's ever going to do that because who can account for what the wind is doing on the ball's pat down and things like that. You probably have a better chance of winning the Powerball than you do hitting a hole-in-one on that hole. And the chances to win the Powerball, Ravi, I don't know if you know, are very low.
They're pretty good. Oh, no, they're not.
They're very low. It's kind of like what I would do if I was Bryce Williams dunking over Wisconsin last night. And I just
too little.
Yeah,
You're
I'd walk
too little.
back to playing defense with my hand flat toward the hardwood.
That's what I would have done if I was, I think it was Bryce Williams, and I didn't get called for that stupid foul on that block from behind. Be like, hey, you're too little.
Too little.
But
But like, because golf started in what, Scotland?
Scotland, yep.
Like, think about like going over to Scotland
Sure.
for your golf trip because it's one free, so you
Yep.
can go anywhere.
Yep.
And going there and playing in Scotland,
Mm.
and if you were a scratch golfer,
That would be pretty cool.
but I just can't pass the opportunity on Tiger. I would rather pay to go to Scotland if I got to play with Tiger at least once.
See, that's the thing with like Augusta and Tiger, right? Is like those are experiences you can't really just pay for. Like you have to have like the in and the opportunity to do it. Some of the other stuff you can kind of just pay for. I can't just pay to be a scratch
and
golfer.
if you're a
either.
scratch golfer, maybe you're making a little bit of money. Maybe you're on the tour or you're climbing the rankings, and boom, you end up in Scotland playing.
Get out at that Pinnacle Bank Championship with us. Maybe you can make a little money out there. Coming up next, we got our guy Mike Sautter from Hurrdat Sports. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Joining us now, not on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline because he's here in person. Mike Sautter, Hurrdat Sports, covers basketball, Nebraska basketball, as well as high school basketball. Mike, how are you this morning?
I'm tired.
Yeah, you had a late night.
Yeah, the early morning.
What
late night,
what
whatever.
time did you roll in yesterday?
I pulled into the garage at 1:48 this morning.
Ooh, that is rough. What time did you wake up this morning?
Normal 6:50 alarm goes off.
That's not enough sleep, Mike.
Take kids to school, take my one kid to school. I
Yeah, but
guess,
see, Ravi, what you don't get is when you become a parent,
Yeah.
like all of a sudden you don't need sleep anymore. Like Mike Sautter can operate off not having sleep.
Oh,
Every
well, that's-
parent I talk to
that's
is
helpful.
like, hey, in 4 hours time, like it sucks getting up, but like parents are like a different animal. Once
let
you
me
have a
tell you.
kid, right, Mike? Like you just
Yeah.
become a different being.
Yeah, sure. My wife does, and I still sleep more than she does. It is. You're right, though, and it's something that I tried. Just because I'm not. This is gonna get all parent, whatever. But something that I very much so try to do is in the last, I guess, 2 months. Just because I'm gone a lot at night and not around for different things, is when I'm available, it's no excuses, no excuse parenting. So no matter how tired I am or whatever, like got to get up, got to go, got to do it, got to play tag outside in the wet, melted snow on Wednesday afternoon with my snow boots on, and I can't move, and like
Totally hypothetical situation.
yeah, got to do it, right? So now, am I getting a nap in later today? I was gonna cuss, but yes,
You
I
bet
am.
your sweet arse.
Yeah,
right?
I am gonna. I'm the odds of me getting a nap in at some point are good today, but that's okay. So I will. Yeah.
All right, so take us back last night. Obviously, Nebraska gets an incredible win over Wisconsin. At what point did you think they actually had a chance to win? Because for me, it was very, very late before I actually thought they could complete the comeback, because every time they made a push, Wisconsin kind of threw that jab out and kept them away. Finally, Nebraska was able to get over the hump there. But at what point did you actually finally think, okay, they might be able to do this?
Literally checks notes. When CJ Wilcher hit that ridiculous 3-point shot from Kent Pavelka's lap is when I thought they had a chance. When he cut it to 7 at 11:55 in the middle of a 14-3 run.
Okay.
That's when I.
So that was earlier than me. That was
when
earlier
he,
than
when
me.
he cut it to 7, I was like, yeah, he did, Kent. He really
I pretty
did.
much said halftime, Mike.
No way.
So it's funny because
There's no way you thought that halftime.
So I was talking with a buddy to live bet Nebraska at half because they were plus 750.
Oh yeah, that would have been. I would have.
And I said this is immense value at home.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like joking around. But he didn't end up getting the bet in. I was a little saddened by it.
That's pretty. That would be. Yeah.
It's all right though. It's all right.
Shoot, you throw $10 on it, you feel good.
Yeah. Well, so I already had like a $25 bet on the money line, so I'm like, it's whatever. But yeah, no.
25 to win,
It-
25.50.
The sports bettor in me said, "Let's go degenerate mode at halftime." The sports host in me said, "Yeah, probably about midway between Ravi's point and Sauter's point. Like I think in the window of when they got it to 52 all.
Yeah, that was
think-
at 6:41.
I think that's when I said, this is like they're back.
Yeah,
They're coming.
right. It was unbelievable. Like luckily CJ Wilcher. I mean, that's just
good
the
thing we have
craziest
him.
thing.
Good thing Nebraska has him
Yeah,
off the bench.
You play?
Listen, guy, did you hear me correct it?
Yeah, I did. but-
Yeah.
That was a conversation we had last night in
yeah.
the media room too,
Yeah.
and someone said, imagine if we did this against Iowa or something. I was like, they're like 2 or 3 of us were like, we?
Yeah, I
I'm
don't.
not a we guy.
I don't care about that at all.
Really?
I know people get really.
Sauter just went we.
Yeah,
all the
I
way
do.
home.
Yeah,
I know people get really. Jeez, that's kind of funny.
that was.
People get really up in arms about it. I don't care at all. If you say, I know I throw out wheeze every once in a while. It doesn't bother me. If that's just how you think about it, I don't care.
I we for one sports team, and that's it. Only one.
And that is the New England
is the-
Patriots.
We did talk.
You
to
want your
Tollefsen
other
today.
hand broken? What'd
We
you say?
said we did talk to Tollefsen today, and I know that
That's my guy.
you had some words
Like Dave.
to say that I missed until the end of the interview.
Yeah, I could take him down. I feel good about it.
In a wrestling match.
Mhm.
I don't know if he's still listening because he was goose hunting
Doubt it.
apparently
Yeah,
while he
doubt
was
it.
talking to us.
Yeah.
But we will issue that challenge to him.
Yeah,
We'll see if we can make
Dave's
that
my
happen.
guy.
He's still a big dude.
I did a high school, all-star game thing a couple years in a row. I was the general manager for Team Nebraska, and Dave was our defensive line, was the person that was our defensive line coach. Kids loved him, man. He was so cool to just be around, and kids just eating up all the knowledge he had. It was awesome. Dave's a great dude. That night ended up with us at some bar and I'm taking pictures with Mike McGee and stuff.
I think that's
like
how
Mike McGee, the former NBA player, basketball player,
Yeah,
went to Omaha North. Yeah, Dave and we were all just,
Hanging out.
yeah, it was weird.
I think that's how a lot of people's nights ended up last night, just at random bars taking pictures with people
Yeah,
after that Nebraska win. So
1957-58
was the last time they
last
had
time
two
they
top 6
had
wins.
2 top 6 wins. And
That's
that was
65 years.
That was Fred Hoiberg's grandfather, Jerry Bush, was there.
Well, I'm reading right now that the last time they had 2 top 10 win seasons, it was when they made it to the NCAA tournament.
13-14.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I think by now we've all seen the 1,458 consecutive games an AP top 10 team was leading by more than 16 at halftime have won before last night.
Against an unranked team?
AP top 10 teams had won 1,458 consecutive games when leading by more than 16 points at halftime before Nebraska's win over Wisconsin.
I got to tell you,
The last time that happened, the last loss by an AP top 10 team was number 6 Kentucky at Mississippi State on January 5th, 2002.
I'm sure there's a computer that tells somebody that, but the way I imagine it is somebody going back through every single one and flipping
College
through pages.
basketball reference.
Right.
Yeah.
And flipping through pages and finally getting there at like 4 a.m. Like, I got it.
And then
I
we
got
saw
it."
the 120-0.
Yep. Wisconsin had won
Wisconsin
120 straight games,
by
leading by
15
15 or more at halftime.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's funny because didn't they lead Nebraska last year by double digits? Too,
Yeah,
at half.
Nebraska came back. Yep.
That
Yeah.
is that's
It was 12 or
they
Yeah,
were.
it's somewhere like
point
11 or
17.
12. Yeah.
maybe
They-
it was 17 in the second half or something.
I would say they got up by more
Yeah, it
than
was
15, but it
overtime,
wasn't
too.
at halftime. So that's a distinction.
12
there.
Nebraska's 12-1 when they score 80 or more points.
How
That's how it's done.
how did you kind of
And we
process
needed overtime.
It was unbelievable.
How did you kind of process the Keisei Tominaga effect or lack thereof? Because Andrew brought up a really good point in, they did try and bring him back in the second half. He got scored on a couple times. Then he really didn't end up playing the way down the stretch. I mean, if you're Nebraska, and most people would think, hey, if you're going to upset somebody, you're going to need Keisei to have a big game. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Not only did he not have a big game, he was basically a total non-factor in that game.
I'm going to be probably way too honest here.
You can be whatever you want, Mike.
Don't get it.
Don't get what?
Like the
hype of Keisei?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
as someone that's watched, every one of the games this year, and
I think it's a lot of social media hype that drives it. You see a lot of the crazy shots that he makes, and
his ability to get a shot off and it to go in, and his lack of natural athleticism and the quick release he has is remarkable. It is off the charts. It is literally Steph Curry.
It's what I told Ravi. He's a rhythm guy. If he's in rhythm, he's fantastic. But if he's out of it, it's hard to watch. They got
a couple guys they got to get going early, and it's hard to get a couple guys going early. Mm-hmm. Rink is one of those offensively. So I just.
Although he surprised me a lot last night by being able to find his rhythm late.
Another step back three. That was amazing. that was phenomenal.
Remember when you said
Shane, you almost had to dump that right there, because it was the F was coming. That I got.
Remember when you said, F. "Oh yeah, he's never doing that again," and we were talking about him making like 5 or 6 of 8 threes, which of course the percentage is what you said would never come again. But the fact that he had another step back three again. Mike Sautter probably was in his chair like, oh, man, here they come.
Yeah, he did get it.
That was the funniest part about that was it was such a terrible possession.
It was a really bad possession.
They needed
a bucket.
Yeah, they didn't get anywhere. I don't think they got it past like 18 feet. Yeah. Like they didn't get closer than 18 feet to the hoop the entire time. And you're just like, man, this is going to be a terrible possession. It's going to be a terrible shot. And it ends up in Rink's hands, and you're like, man, this is not the guy I want the ball with on the perimeter to try and figure out
with someone
shot up.
In
his shorts, like was in his grill, and then he's just like, don't worry, Kobe, and nails.
I can't remember if that was before or after he missed a couple just open threes too.
Mm-hmm. I think it was after.
Well, and a majority of the misses were wide open.
He had
threes
good
by
looks.
Nebraska,
not
just by Rink, but even Tominaga. Going back to our previous point,
and Tominaga is on that point, he's just so limited defensively.
Yeah,
and that's it.
And people are scouting more, and
they needed the hustle. They needed the fast-paced game. A majority of that second half, and that's really what Sam Hoiberg brought. And so that's why when Tominaga came in, Hoiberg went out. Then, less than a minute later, because back-to-back threes by Klesmit brought Tominaga out and Sam back in. So they needed that sort of hustle player in there. I told Ravi, too, maybe you could probably come to this analysis as well. You may have somebody different. When Nebraska, needed a dude to make the next shot, right? Because we were talking about getting to even, and then Wisconsin would go. Getting to even, Wisconsin
couple of possessions got real stagnant when they got
and CJ.
Who's the guy to make?
CJ just couldn't get open. I mean, they were on him.
Yeah, they like
glue. Did it feel like Sam Hoiberg was that guy though?
To make a play, yes. He's not going to make the shot, but
although he did have that bucket
in
the lane,
huge,
which was enormous.
It just seemed like he was that dude that we were kind of looking for.
Yeah, he had a couple of tip balls.
He saved a ball on the baseline. He stole one that Alec ended up saving on the sideline.
He's so he is that spark plug defender, guy coming off the bench that just lays it on the line.
Consummate
unbelievable
energy glue guy.
Yeah,
that is.
You can tell his conditioning too is off the charts because he never slows down.
Also, post game last night, just talking to the players, I guess I asked the question about Sam because this is now 2 home games in a row where he's come in and hasn't scored, but his plus minus is 20. Or something high. Yeah. It's just whoa. When he's on the floor, he's impacting the game a ton. That's what plus minus basically means. So they were his scout, his preparation puts him in that moment and is important for him to be in that moment. So, between Wilcher, Hoiberg, and Gary, the combined plus minus was 51.
Well, and Gary was huge 33 minutes off the bench.
And that's way more than they wanted to play.
I was saying it had to be right because
Yeah.
this is his first game back.
Yeah.
I was like,
They wanted him
wanted
to
him to be
play
limited.
about 20.
I was going to say like 15 to 20,
Maybe.
right?
Yeah.
Like you come back
Casey minutes.
after a few games off, you're kind of coming back. You kind of tweaked, had that lower leg injury, and there's no way they were like, yeah, let's run him out there for 33 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, Casey's going to have one of those. He's going to pop one, though. Like
Sure, yeah.
Big one. It's
But
coming.
there's an inconsistency with him because of his limitations, right?
And
it-
luckily, they have other guys they can go to. The depth has kind of been pretty good. Even without Eli Rice has given them really good minutes recently, and he was out last night with an ankle.
Yeah.
So, like, you lose
Well,
that
and
piece.
CJ Wilcher is kind of like last year's Keisei Tominaga a little
Kinda.
bit because
Kind of, yeah.
Tominaga comes in as like the Greasel Walker role of like, okay, we know these guys are going to be like their top scorers, and CJ coming off the bench is a great scorer.
He's the microwave guy.
But that's what got Keisei such prowess last season was, his shots were open because more people were planning for Sam and Walker than they were planning for Keisei. Now this year they're planning for Keisei,
Right.
which allows CJ to kind of be that guy.
I did the math quick after the game. In his last 11 games, he is 32 of 55 from 3, CJ Wilcher, for 58.2% in his last 11 games.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's my basketball analysis. That's good.
That's unbelievable. Like,
Ravi's basketball analysis on Wednesday was you score more points than the other team, you win.
For a
Today,
guy-
that's-
for-
No, you have the
frankly-
lead.
frankly, for a guy that, like, coming into the year based off of last year, like, I don't know. If
Been
I
pretty
want-
disappointing.
Don't know if I want him to even shoot free throws,
Yeah.
much less like be a big shot maker guy. So he's worked really hard at it, and that's I guess I asked Fred that. Someone had a problem with the way I asked the question last night. Have you ever seen anyone be on this much of a heater? And I guess I just was using basketball slang and terminology there, but
Who had a problem?
someone on social media.
Speaking of social media
okay.
problems,
Do they
there
not-
was more
we'll
than
get
just
to
one
that.
problem.
Do they
Yeah, we'll
not?
get to
Do they not know what being on a heater means?
Yeah, I don't know. It said it was an unprofessional way to ask the question. And then Coach Hoiberg gave me a zing that said, "Well, I did play with Reggie Miller," and everybody laughed. And
Fair
I laughed
point.
to myself.
Fair
and I was
point.
like,
Fair
I
point.
know. But it's okay.
And
Um,
Mike Sautter was humbled for the first time in
yeah.
his life.
He's done it to me twice this year, so it's okay. I'm learning, right? No, yeah. What were we talking about? CJ.
I
Wilson.
asked about well, we were talking about CJ
Yeah.
Wilcher, but then I alluded to another problem that you
Yeah, I
had
mean,
with
we can get
last
into
night.
that.
Let's get into the Chucky Hepburn situation of it all
Yeah.
because I know you have some feelings about it, as you could tell either if you were in the building or watching the broadcast last night. Every time, especially early, it kind of faded later because he kind of went on a little spurt there, and Nebraska fans backed off. But every time early, that Chucky Hepburn got the ball, Nebraska fans were booing aggressively the entire place.
Not just early, a majority of the game.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
it's slowed down a little bit
it
once
did.
Nebraska started coming back because I think the focus was more on
they
hey,
shifted
the
a
game
little
is
bit.
close.
But it was pretty aggressive. It was not uncommon. This is something that has kind of happened pretty much every time he's come back.
2 times in a row now.
That he comes back to Nebraska, where he gets booed in his home state while playing for Wisconsin. And Mike, you don't like that very much.
I just want to know why.
Okay.
Like, no one has explained. I asked multiple people, why are you booing?
Let me try and channel this is not what I believe. I'm going to try and channel the Nebraska fan here. It's because
We're in a
he's
soapbox here for a minute.
absolutely. I think
I'm like,
I think they're booing, and so you can correct their misassumptions here. I think they're booing because they feel like he chose Wisconsin over Nebraska.
he didn't have the option
Now go.
to go to Nebraska.
Robbie, you literally put that on a tee.
That's what I was doing. I wanted him to.
He didn't like.
It's like that alley oop I threw when I was drunk.
He didn't choose. He
Go ahead,
he
Sautter,
didn't
sorry.
choose Nebraska over. He didn't choose Wisconsin over Nebraska. He didn't have the option to go to Nebraska
Okay, explain, please.
because when Tim Miles,
I don't think a
got
lot of
let
people know
go.
this. So
if Tim Miles is the head coach in Nebraska still today,
Mhm.
Chucky Hepburn is at Nebraska.
Okay.
Feel real good about
Pretty
that.
confident about
Like,
that.
Real confident about that.
So
100%.
he gets the offer from Tim Miles.
He gets offered Tim Miles.
Tim Miles
Tim
gets
Miles
fired.
gets let go. And Matt Abdelmassi, call him by name, didn't think he was good enough. And he was the one in charge of recruiting.
Mhm.
Like, Frank, flat out. That's full stop. That's what happened. He didn't think he was good enough. And so they basically rescinded the offer.
Okay.
And then Nebraska came back late after Wisconsin was way down the road on it,
Mhm.
right? Real late in the process, trying to get him to come to Nebraska or change his mind
And
or
it just
whatever
was
it
too
might
late.
be. It was too late. He didn't have he basically didn't have the option. Not basically, he didn't have the option. The
And he
bridge
probably-
the bridge
probably
had been
felt
burned.
played.
Yeah, the bridge had been burned.
Yeah. By the
Like-
time the option was back
Yeah,
represented,
it was way too
they
late.
had burned that relationship.
100%.
Yeah.
So if you're booing him because he left the state and didn't choose to stay home, you're completely wrong.
Yeah.
You don't have the facts. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, and that is basically the gist of why. I can't get a reason why. Because when people say, oh, he left the state, actually, here's what the facts are and what happened. Oh, well, it's just gamesmanship. Then people come back, it's just gamesmanship. It's just whatever. No, gamesmanship every time he touches the ball
And just him.
Yeah.
and just him.
If it was
No, it's
gamesmanship,
not.
it'd be everybody,
It's personal. What is anybody tell me one thing? Give me one example,
One good reason.
one reason, one thing that Chucky Hepburn has said that is negative about Nebraska, the University of Nebraska, the men's basketball program at Nebraska. Anything negative that kid has said about Nebraska. Give me one. Show me one example, because I've not seen one ever.
Mike Sauter's like the guy at the college campus, the change my mind table.
He's
like
like-
that's what you need. You need
There's-
someone to come and change your mind.
Chucky has handled this incredibly
Ugh.
well because you have to, like, I imagine
You have to have some sort of mental fortitude to
Right.
go through that.
because listen,
what he did last night.
you're in your home state. You are you are an incredible high school basketball player here, and you're still like a young guy, right? He's what, 21
Maybe.
years old?
Yep.
Like, this is not some grizzled 32-year-old NBA vet or NFL vet
Yeah.
where they're getting booed going back to the city they used to play in because they left in free agency or they demanded a trade or whatever, right? That's not this. This is a young man who Nebraska at the time with the staff in
They
place
didn't want him.
didn't want.
Yeah,
Wisconsin was solid the whole way.
correct.
He went the place that wanted him, right?
It's turned out great for him too. He's
Yeah.
having a great career. He's representing the state in a great way on a top 10 team that has a chance to maybe make it to the Final Four, which he'll get talked about being from Nebraska
A ton.
a lot.
Yeah.
He does a lot anyway. Like he gets talked about being from Nebraska all the time. He's proud to be from
Right.
here. Like,
But they didn't want him. At the end
it's
of the
not
day,
his fault.
they didn't want him.
Well, so here's my take on the whole thing, because I think booing is okay, but you have to like figure out when you boo somebody,
Correct.
right? And you boo somebody when you hear them in the starting lineup, right? Like you're just
or
like,
certain situations.
but not
or
even just
something.
that. Like when you hear, oh, from Omaha, Nebraska, what's he, 23?
Yeah.
Number 23, Chucky Hepburn. It's like, if you hear booze there, it's like, oh, that's kind of
Okay.
funny. It's light, like, you know, but you don't, that's where the booing stops.
It feels personal.
That's
It
where the
is
booing
personal.
stops. It's not like,
But why?
and I told this to Sautter during
That's what
the
I mean.
break.
But they made it personal for no reason.
It's
Right.
not like a Brandon Phillips said something bad about the Cardinals, and then that
Then he
fight
gets
broke
booed.
out
Yeah.
because of what he said.
Different.
Like that, those are the moments Sauter's looking for right now.
Yeah.
Find me the moment
That doesn't exist.
where that exists, and then bring it to me, and then you would be like, oh, like, okay, and now I can maybe understand X, Y, and Z.
If anyone has been wronged in this situation, it is Chucky.
But if Sauter doesn't
Like,
know it,
it didn't happen.
and something did happen, that would blow my mind.
It would blow my mind.
it would blow my mind that Sauter missed something in high school.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen. Right?
And honestly, maybe I'm like too close to the situation because I've followed Chucky since he was in 8th grade, and like him and Hunter.
But it's
were at
not
the
even
same
about
time
that.
and all that.
It's weird.
It is, and it took away. Frankly, I think it took away from the game or from the crowd. When it stopped was when the crowd started just yelling when Wisconsin had the ball, like they should
Yeah, like you
have
should
the
when-
entire game.
Like you should when your team's
instead
on
of
defense.
like instead of the last 10 minutes of the game. Like maybe put that energy towards something else, or supporting your team, or trying to help your team off a really slow start.
Hey, notice when the booing did stop, what happened?
They started winning.
They came back.
the run came back, right? You're
Come
cheering
in.
for your guy.
Coming up next, we'll get into some high school stuff with Mike Sautter here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me. We're here with Mike Sautter as
we are.
well. Before we hop into...
I'm here the whole hour today, folks.
That's right. Before we hop back
baby.
into some talk with Mike Sautter, I want to tell you about our friends at the Team Jack Foundation. They're currently funding 13 projects and collaborating with national institutions such as Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and Columbia University. Not to mention, of course, the University of Nebraska Medical Center, which is one of their largest projects to date, the creation of the Nebraska Childhood Brain Tumor Program. And you might be asking yourself, why is this so important? It's because childhood brain cancer, the treatments for it are almost 50 years old. They have not been innovated in almost half a century, and they're highly toxic to the children. Even if they survive the tumor, they're often left with lifelong issues because of the treatment. It's important to find better treatments on the way to finding a cure for childhood brain cancer. That's why Team Jack Foundation has raised over $12 million to date and counting. If you want to get involved with events, fundraising, donating money yourself, go to teamjackfoundation.org to learn more about how to get involved. All right. Any other thoughts on Nebraska, Wisconsin before we hop to the high school state?
Can I give you some thoughts on it?
Sure.
Okay, so you guys were talking about
Did you say, oh boy?
you guys were talking about heart rate and when you're watching Nebraska games. I just want to compare that to the 5-minute break that we just had there with Mike Sautter, because I was jumping on the mic. I was like, I got to make sure I have this off. I got to make sure I have the camera off.
I was gonna say,
My heart rate is
What's
like,
your heart rate?
oh my gosh.
Shane's heart rate making sure that Mike Sautter doesn't curse on the air is as high as Andrew's
when
friend.
I am tired, it's something. I don't know.
It is
I don't know how to do the watch thing.
it's
I'm
fine.
trying to figure
Don't worry
it out.
about it.
I'm sorry.
He's going to his phone.
I can look at this though. I think I know where it is on the. Isn't it the same thing?
It looks like a heart.
Yeah, it's just a little heart app.
Yeah, I may have deleted that.
Mine was off the charts.
I was gonna say,
Oh no, I got it. I don't like extra apps and stuff on my phone.
he doesn't like knowing what his heart rate is. He'd rather not know. Just let it happen.
Now that he knows where to find it, though, he's going to check it all the time.
Yeah.
I can imagine Shane's just stress level every time Sautter comes in the
Not
building.
every time, just today.
I mean, a lot of times.
It's okay. I can't find it on here on the phone.
It's okay. We'll work on it during the
All
next
right,
break. That's
sorry.
fine.
I have 2,170 steps in already today. though.
Look at you getting going.
Because he's been pacing. Because of how mad he is.
That's not true. I had to get gas. You know,
He had 1,000 during that last break.
I was
People
just
couldn't see.
waving the
get
arms
out of the
about
seat.
Chucky Hepburn. He didn't do anything to you.
He did.
So speaking of players in high school in Nebraska, Chucky no longer. But what's going on in the high school slate this week, Mike?
Yeah, well, last night was a huge game. Marcus Glock and Wahoo. I guess Wahoo played Crete last night, and really good game. Marcus Glock had 55, I think was the number.
Is that
Is that
good?
right? Jacob was there, and
55 points?
yeah. What'd you think? 50?
No, 55 steps. Like on.
Yeah, what do you-
I thought it was like 55 boos or.
No, no. He had 55. I believe he had 55 points.
I'm going to bring
last
up
night.
Jacob's Twitter account. It'll
I'm
tell me.
looking at the story he actually wrote on hurrdatsports.com and
What is
the
this,
NEB
like
Preps page.
The NBA? We're trying to get to
He had
70?
50. Yeah, he had. They still lost the game though. 90-81.
50.
Wow.
Or no, he broke his dad's record.
Dad's
of 52.
scoring. Yeah.
54
He had
is what
54.
is what 13 of 25 from the field, 24 of 25 from the free throw line.
Yeah, pretty good. He's going to Northwest Missouri State.
Not bad.
Oh.
Not bad.
A
Like
lot
our
of
guy
Northwest
Dave
Missouri State
Tollefson.
today.
I
Yeah.
like that.
A lot
That
of
is awesome.
Maryville
You
love
would
this morning.
like that. But Crete shot 50% from the field and 44% from three with 12 makes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So that was a big game last night. What
That was a
other-
B versus C1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the top team in B, Crete is undefeated, stays unbeaten. They're really good. They had hopefully not a serious injury last night to a pretty good player for them. But they're cruising. Like undefeated team at this point is pretty cool. So pretty good feat. Tomorrow's slate not great.
Not as good.
Tomorrow's slate not great. Tonight there's some good games though. You have Prep West Side is tonight.
Ooh, that's pretty
That's
solid.
a really good one.
It's a big rivalry game. I believe that game is at West Side. So
Is that 4 versus 7
yeah, something like
in
that.
your
right?
in the most
coaches
recent
poll.
coaches poll?
Yeah, something like that.
I believe that's
So,
right.
Millard North, Millard West girls game is a big one tonight. Really big one tonight.
Okay,
So
that's
two
a good
top
one.
5 teams. The boys game should be okay or pretty good. Omaha Central at Gretna tonight. So the first 1 to 50 wins that game
That's
probably.
3 versus 5.
So those teams just guard you so well.
Right.
And Central's really physical, and so depending on how that game's called,
I mean, that's a Chubbuck team.
and yes,
Yeah.
stereotypical Chubbuck team. And Gretna really doesn't have a ton of depth, so depending on how fouls and stuff, if it's a real physical game, could be interesting. But it's at Gretna, so that's a good game too. I will be in Ashland for DC West versus Ashland Greenwood because it won my game of the week by a lot.
Large margin.
Yeah, so that's where I will be tonight. And
The people outside the metro area like it when you come and visit.
Ashland isn't really
It's outside the. I mean, it's like on the edge of the
it's
metro.
basically
Yeah.
a suburb now. It feels like.
All right, fair enough.
You can get there in about.
I guess DC
20.
West is pretty close.
Is
I mean,
Ashland where they're building like that new Top Golf?
What?
are they building a new Topgolf?
No, they're talking about it. It's
It's-
not.
it's
no,
not?
that's at
No,
Gre-
yeah, you're right. No,
that right?
Yeah, Gretna, but it's the
Yeah.
Ashland.
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
basically the same.
Yeah, there's like a highway between basically the outlet malls and
204th
Ashland, basically, and it's like
204th
it's
Street
8 minutes.
And they're like building like
Highway
a ton of
6.
apartments over there too.
Yeah,
Or
They
hotels.
want to. Yes,
that's the idea.
That's the plan.
That's the idea.
They need to get some
Some funding.
some maybe TIF stuff, maybe some
Beside the point.
tax break things. to
Somebody's
get that
got to
done.
pay for it.
Yeah, but yes, right on 204th Street as I drive on that road, I feel like a lot.
Probably.
Because I go to Lincoln all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a lot on the high school slate, to be honest. Like it's
So are you going to be out at Creighton tonight?
I am gonna be at Ashland.
Oh, I thought
Greenwood,
you said that was tomorrow.
DC
I
West,
apologize.
Ashland Greenwood.
I got my.
Where
today.
were you, Ravi?
I was
yeah, boo Ravi for that.
I was
one.
reading the comments where Amazing Daniel says Mike Sauter's foul language is my spirit animal, which I think is about right.
Remember when we did the morning dump thing?
The morning dump was fantastic.
That
needs
was
to get brought
fun.
back.
He just likes that because he could swear on
I could.
1000%.
It was.
it. Just let her
It got
rip.
a little
I
aggressive.
mean, and some of the best segments.
Shane trying to do more push-ups than me didn't work.
I could not believe DB thought Shane was going to do 25 push-ups. I couldn't believe it.
What?
Shane couldn't believe that he ended with 24 3/4.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to lock that thing out, Shane. I don't know
Those
what to tell you.
arms
That
were
was slided.
trembling.
His
That
arms
video,
were shaking. He was
that
sore.
video
he's
was
still sore. That was
slided.
a year ago.
that you guys were up on the ledge up there. I mean, if it would have been a level video, I would have had it.
I don't know what
I
the
don't-
video.
I don't think it was the video.
I think someone has to have the video evidence of me beating Shane in a push-up contest.
But did you actually face off? Like,
Well,
or
I
was
did it, and then he did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I actually lost another push-up contest to
Who-
someone else in the office, but I'm not going to.
Who'd you lose the push-up
I don't
contest
want
to?
to talk about
But
it.
no, but who'd
I
you
don't
lose
really want to talk about
The
it.
only person I can think of is like Sasha.
No, would never let that. I would never. allow that. I would.
No,
I
was it
would rip every.
All right,
I would
and
rip
if it's not
every
that-
shoulder muscle
Right.
and every bicep muscle.
There's
in order
no way
for
it was David. Right? Was it
Oh,
David?
it was David.
It was
You lost a push-up contest to David?
unbelievable. Yeah. I'm
Hey,
embarrassed.
hey,
David doesn't seem like the type of guy
I
to
am
take you on in a contest. like that.
Embarrassed. It must have been a day like today where I'm just really tired. And didn't
Oh,
have
here
any-
it
Oh, here come
comes.
the excuses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Boo Mike Sauter for the excuses.
Oh,
Arms weren't extended.
Yeah, they got it. No, you don't want to be too wide because then you're not getting
I did.
optimal
Yeah, I
pushing.
got. And
You know,
it was
How many
weird
push-ups
because
did you do?
I don't.
4?
High school basketball.
David get you with 5?
Thank you.
High school basketball. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to talk
So
about it.
not a great slate this weekend.
Not a great slate this weekend, but it's getting, we're getting down to the wire now. And it does really feel like on the boys' side in Class A, Millard North and Bellevue West have kind of separated, and we're in for another, classic historic game of them. It feels like they played in the state final for the last
pretty much every
years.
Yeah.
So it does feel very much
the
so
modern
like
version of that Central Bell West matchup that we had for like 7 years in a row.
Sautter,
Feels like it.
who's the undefeated team in boys that will take the first L?
Oh, wow. Well, how many? Well,
You have Auburn, Crete, and Johnson.
Auburn
Brock.
could lose to Freeman tomorrow night.
Boom. There we go.
Could.
Matt Vrzal coming up next. We wrap up the week as we always do with our friend, former Husker and owner of Paisan's Pizzeria, Matt Vrzal, on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Verz, how are you this morning?
Good, boys. How you doing? Well, actually, who's there?
I apologize. It's me, your friend Ravi Lulla. We got Andrew Rogers, and then
me.
we got Mike.
Me.
Got
I'm
Mike
here
Sautter
today
as well. Apparently.
What's up, boys? How we doing?
Hey, good. Hey, you don't have your lunch closed today, do you?
Yes.
It's
Oh,
closed
you're not
again?
open
You're
today?
doing something else?
If Scud is in school and it's a Friday, chances are we're going to be taking 160 pizzas over there.
Well,
Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
trying to get some
Unbelievable.
wings today.
I mean, it's good to
All due respect, but that's a big ticket, and that's a sure thing.
Hey, I wouldn't blame you for
What he's saying
closing
is
shop for that.
Mike Sautter not as important as Scott.
Yes.
No, what he's saying
Mike's
is
single order of wings not as important as
That's what he's
160
saying.
pizzas. Verz,
There's no comment. He's just right. Get the dump button ready, Shane, because I'm about to say some stuff.
You've been saying stuff all
You
day.
ain't going to say nothing.
I know where you work.
yeah, we all do, Sautter.
Like in the words of Dion, I'm easy to find.
Yeah, I don't like your chances in
Hey,
that one,
Are
Sautter.
you
I
going
can
to say
run
we
faster.
coming now? Are you gonna come back with the we
Nah.
coming? Come on.
I'm ready.
He's about to say we coming right before they go 4-8.
Wow.
Verz, what's keeping you busy this week? What's on your mind?
Pizza today.
Clearly making 185 pizzas
Besides
today.
making 1 million pizzas for the Scott kids.
Not a whole bunch, just getting trying to get I found a little space to set up a studio, so I'm going to try to start a YouTube channel and put some stuff out there that I've kind of been working on. So
Okay.
kind of coordinate some stuff that I need to get going on and do a little car shopping. I was down in Oklahoma City for a friend's 50th birthday party. And evidently, Oklahoma City is the capital of two-door Chevy Tahoes, which I love. So I found about 25 of them down there. So I think I'm going to head back down there in a couple weeks and go look at a few of those and get one to replace mine, or drive mine in the winter and drive the other one in the the rest of the year.
Because they probably don't have four-wheel drive and stuff like that, I'm guessing.
No, they got four-wheel drive. They're less rust.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
There you
The
go.
ones up here get a little rusty.
Well, especially now.
Yeah, other than that, just got fellows in off-season training and just doing that kind of stuff. Nothing crazy.
Verse. So I went to the game last night, the Nebraska basketball game. Dylan Raiola was there. He gets shown nearly every single game. And so when I was driving back, I was re-listening to his commitment day video. I don't know. I was just kind of in the Dylan Raiola mood, and I couldn't help but take note of how he can't wait to play for this fan base. He loves being a part of the fan base because that's just what he was raised on. And I'm like, man, I wonder if Verz had a similar experience when he first came to Nebraska. So I'm going to ask you, did you have a similar thought process of like, you can't wait to play for this fan base? And how has that fan support impacted your experience both as a player and beyond?
So everybody will threaten it and everybody will mention, but what Nebraska fan has been through for the past 20 years, and then to still buy tickets and to still want to come and attend, that speaks of itself. I was born into it. So I grew up here. Back then it wasn't as much doubt. If they came and asked you, you were going. You were going to give it a shot, which is the opportunity that I got. So now, did that go into a starting role and stardom and all that stuff? No, not from being on the football field. But if you look at my, as good as they are to you when you play is almost as better as they are to you when you get older, because my life, my livelihood, I know what I am. I'm a neighborhood pizza place that Nebraska fans are going to come in. We're going to have some conversations. They're going to want to talk about it, and I'll gladly speak to them about it. So they're awesome. It's really cool that message resonated with him as a young man, like when he was growing up, and that it does mean something to him, because I think at times we've gone through a phase of, hey, just come here because it's Nebraska. It is what it is. They got a load of money. You're going to have whatever you need. If we win, we win. Oh, well. So now you get a kid that's coming in here. It's like, hey, man, this ain't about you. This ain't about me. This is about a state that loves this team. Almost unconditionally loves you. So we got to go hold up our end of the bargain. We got to play. And I think it's something that, people that never played a sport or played at a different level will poo-poo it. But there's got to be a genuine care for where you're at. Like, you have to give an S about the city, about the people, about the fans, about the university. I'm not saying you have to sell out the university totally, but it's got to mean something to you. So anytime you get lineage kids, it's a big deal. And to have him come in and he can preach the gospel of what it was like. And then maybe they can go and they don't have to try to recreate what it was. They can create it their way. And he can help do that. So it means a bunch.
Is there a different kind of pressure though that comes with that?
Oh, 100%. Listen, on the list of people that I would not want, I would be cool to be him, but I wouldn't sign up to do it. He's at the top, because he's got to come in now, and he may have to he may have to lose some friendships, because if you got some guys that are dead weight, he's going to have to call them out. And it ain't the friend business, it's show business. So he's got an immense amount of pressure on him. Now, I don't think it phases him at all, because the good part about him and how he was born, he's the seed of Dominic Raiola. And there wasn't much in the world that bothered Dominic Raiola except the opponent. So he's built for this. Like, you're going to see a mentally tough kid. You're going to see a guy that hopefully has the leadership skills of his father and can do those things that his daddy did. Because if he can do that, two or three players change the mindset of your team, right? The strength coach can physically change you. The coaches can coach you. Football isn't different. Everybody's got different names for the same plays. But can you get a unit together to play as one and to play for each other? And I think he's the guy that can do that. Is it going to happen overnight? No. But can he be the first two steps in it? For sure. And then by the time he's a sophomore, or he's a junior, sorry, and then hopefully if you can keep him for his senior year, then now you got something.
Verz, it seems like he is uniquely aware of the situation. Like, that kind of is one of the things that encourages me the most. Is I think some guys walk into this situation not necessarily knowing what you're getting yourself into. Maybe Adrian Martinez might be an example of that. Not that I have anything against Adrian, but obviously didn't have the familiarity with the program and the state that Dylan does. It seems like Dylan knows what he's getting himself into, and that almost is encouraging that he's embraced that.
He's lived it though, right?
Yeah.
So you look at the debacle that we've been through. Mm-hmm. You bring in pro guy who cares nothing about Nebraska, gave zero. I've always said you brought a wine and cheese guy to a beer and brats party with Callahan. He was not the guy, right? Then you go to Pelini, where Pelini, he got it. He understood it. He just didn't understand the full magnitude of it. Like, why is every move we make scrutinized? And I was like, well, bud, because you are the only show in town. You come from Ohio. You are that guy. but you got the Bucks. You know, you got the Cavs, you got the Browns, you got all this stuff going on. You got, I think, the Guardians now. You got all these other things to deal with. We don't. We have you. So, and then the Grandpa and the other guy, they just didn't tell the story. But let's be honest. Like they didn't tell it. They didn't tell what it means. And the one instance I get it, the old guy, probably not his jam. But Frost needed to tell that story, what it means. Like it means a lot to the state. It means it honestly is the psyche of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And the uptight will say, "Oh, it's stupid," and this. Well, you don't live here, like, or you don't care. So that I don't care what your opinion is. But it affects the way it goes. They want to be proud of their team. There's nothing wrong with that. So you got to tell that story, or have somebody that lived that story to experience it. And it helps with that. It matters. It really does.
Verz, great stuff this morning. As always, we appreciate your time. Go get those pizzas to those high school kids, and we will talk to you again soon.
Just a quick PSA.
Yes, sir.
If you come to Pisons during a men's basketball game, the sound will not be on because the sound was on and they were down 19 and the sound got turned off and they won. So,
Okay.
No more sound at Pisons.
you will watch the pictures. You will not hear the commentary.
Thank you, Verz. We'll talk to you next week.
See you, Verz.
That is the show for today and for the week. Thank you, Mike Sautter. Thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to my guy, Andrew Rogers, as well. And Shane Schillerberg over in his little Snoopy house. That's the week. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.